Simon says subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications.
We've made the files the instructor uses in this tutorial available for free. Just click the link below in the video details to get these.
Microsoft 365, previously known as Office 365, is a suite of cloud-based productivity tools and services offered by Microsoft. It combines the traditional Microsoft Office applications with cloud-based services, collaboration tools, and security features to enhance productivity and efficiency in both personal and professional settings. Microsoft 365 includes all of the popular applications that we love, such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, and SharePoint, which are widely used for creating and storing documents, spreadsheets, presentations, managing emails, and taking notes. These applications are accessible across various different devices, including desktop computers, laptops, tablets, and smartphones, allowing users to work seamlessly and collaborate in real time. Now, in addition to the core Office applications, Microsoft 365 provides cloud storage through OneDrive. This enables users to store and access their files from anywhere with an internet connection. It also offers various communication and collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams, which facilitates online meetings, chat-based collaboration, file sharing, and project management. Furthermore, Microsoft 365 offers several advanced features and services, such as enterprise-grade email hosting with Exchange Online, cloud-based productivity tools like SharePoint and Yammer for team collaboration, and advanced security features to protect data and ensure compliance with privacy regulations. Now, Microsoft 365 is available through subscription plans, which typically include regular software updates, technical support, and access to the latest and greatest features. The subscription model allows individuals, businesses, and organizations to benefit from the continually evolving suite of tools and services provided by Microsoft that are always up to date. To sign up for a Microsoft 365 subscription, simply visit Microsoft.com and choose a plan that best suits your needs. Plans are divided into personal, business, and enterprise, and you can compare all of these plans side by side on the product page of the Microsoft website. Now, if you're simply an individual who wants to use Microsoft 365 at home for personal projects, the personal plan gives you access to everything you need, but is limited to only one person, and that person is you. If there are many of you in your family that need access to Microsoft 365, the family subscription would work best. This gives you and up to 6 people access to the Microsoft Office suite and tools. Whereas if you are a student who simply needs to be able to access apps like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint to complete assignments, but not really access to anything else, the Office Home and Student plan would work best. There are also numerous business plans available for more heavy-duty use. These plans include access to all of the Office applications, but include business collaboration tools like OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, Exchange, and Microsoft Teams. So it's definitely worth comparing each plan to see which one suits your needs the best. Now, the final group of plans are enterprise plans. Most of the time, if you're working within an organization, they will have one of these plans, and your IT team will simply assign a license to you so you can use it. The important thing to remember here is no matter which plan you select, Microsoft 365 is your online hub of productivity, making it simple and seamless to work and collaborate with others on files and projects. My name is Deborah Ashby, and I'm going to be your host for this course. I'm a Microsoft MVP and course instructor who's been training Microsoft applications and services for over 27 years. I've specifically been training Microsoft 365 for over 10 years. And in fact, I was part of the initial Microsoft 365 global rollout team back in 2013. And Microsoft 365 has gone through a lot of transitions since then, and I'm really excited to show you everything that we can currently do. So that's it for this introduction. It's now time for us to dive into the content. So grab yourself a drink and I will see you over in the first lesson. Once you have a Microsoft 365 subscription, the first step, of course, is to log in. And we log in using the email address and the password associated with our Microsoft 365 account. So that might be your personal email address, or if you're working at an organization, that's going to be your company email address. Now, all I've done here is I've fired up a browser. I've chosen to use Bing, but you can choose whichever browser you like. And you can simply search for either Microsoft 365 or Office 365 in the search bar. So I'm going to go for Microsoft 365 and hit enter. And then we should find that one of the first links we can see here is Office 365 login. So let's click on this and it's going to take us across to the Microsoft homepage. Now, what you might find if this isn't your first time logging into Microsoft 365, it will remember you and log you straight in. So you don't have to go through the sign-in process every time you want to access your applications. And you can see here that I have a little message here that says, "Hello Deb, welcome back." And then it's inviting me to sign in using the email address that I used last time. Now, if this is the first time that you're logging in, you're not going to have this here, but what you do have in the top right hand corner is a little sign in link. So let's use this method to replicate what you're going to see. Now, if say for example, the account that I used to log in isn't listed here, I can choose use another account, and this is going to take me to the sign in screen. So this is basically the screen that you'll see if this is the first time that you're logging in to Microsoft 365. So all you need to do is pop your email address into the correct field. Notice that you also get the opportunity to create an account if you haven't done that by this stage, and then you can simply click on next. You'll then be required to enter in your password. Again, mine has already pre-populated because I've logged in previously. Type that in and click on sign in. And that will log you directly into your Microsoft 365 portal. And that's kind of what we call this home page. And in the next lesson, we're going to have a little look around here, get you familiar with where your applications are and how you access different parts of Microsoft 365. But before we leave this lesson, let's just check to make sure that we know how we can sign out of Microsoft 365 at the end of the day. Again, if we jump up to the top right-hand corner of the screen, you can see here where we have our profile picture. If we click on this, we can switch to another account, or we can simply click on Sign Out. Now that we've logged into the online portal, let's just take a little bit of time exploring the interface to get ourselves familiar with the layout and where we can find our applications. Now, the first thing that you'll probably notice is this big area in the middle here, underneath where it says Welcome to Microsoft 365. You can see here that I have these fairly large thumbnails underneath the heading Recommended. And what you're basically seeing here are files that I've recently edited or files that I've shared in other parts of Microsoft 365. For example, you can see here the first file is an Excel spreadsheet. It's called Product List, and this is a file that I shared within a Teams chat. I can quickly access that file from my Microsoft 365 homepage. Also notice that we have 3 dots. Whenever we see 3 dots within Microsoft 365, that normally means there's some kind of menu underneath. And the menu will reveal some additional options and things that we can do, in this case, with this file. For example, I can choose to open it, I can share it, I can add it to my to-do list, I can remove it from the list entirely, I can download it to my PC, or I can convert it to a PDF. So always look out for these 3 dots because there's always a whole bunch of useful stuff underneath there. Now notice all the way over on the right hand side we have some scroll arrows. That's just going to allow me to scroll through other documents that I've edited or shared recently. And then underneath this recommended section we basically have a quick access section. So this is very similar to your recent documents list in applications like Word and Excel. That's something you might be a little bit more familiar with. Now we have some filters at the top here. Currently I'm showing all documents, so these are all of the documents that I've opened recently. And if we hover over the top one here that just says Deb Test, notice again in the middle I have these 3 dots. When I click, I get another contextual menu with some more options. Another thing you'll notice is that in this last column, I get a little bit more information as to activity on this particular file. So you can see here, for example, the product list file, the second one down, it's telling me that this was a file that I shared in a Teams chat. If we take a look at bios for authors, it's telling me that I've recently edited this. If I scroll down a bit further to the meeting notes Word document, I can see that this was a document that my colleague Adele shared with me. So this is a pretty useful column because it sort of gives you an idea as to recent activity on your files. Now, if we just quickly run across some of these other filters, you can see here we have a recently opened filter. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We have a shared area. Again, this is going to show any files that either you've shared with other people or have been shared with you. And then finally, we have a favorites section. And currently, I've favorited 3 documents. And I always recommend that documents that you access frequently, you add those to your favorites just to make them easy to find. Now, to do that, if we go back to all documents, let's say that I want to favorite this document just here, training document. Again, we go to our 3 dots in the center and we have a favorite option just here. Now, if I toggle my favorites on, I can see there is training document. Now, another cool thing we can do here, which really allows us to start to customize our copy of Microsoft 365, is we can add our own content filters. If I click on the plus just here, this is going to allow me to specify different pieces of criteria and effectively create my own filter. So maybe I'm just interested in seeing Excel documents. That might be a filter I want to use. I could add another content filter. Maybe I only want to see documents that are owned by myself. And if you want to remove any of these filters, just hover over, you have a cross there. If we click on the cross, we can confirm that yes, we want to delete the filter. So I would highly recommend that you personalize this area of your Microsoft 365 homepage. Also notice on the right hand side, we have a couple of other things we can do. We can change the way that we're displaying our documents. So I have mine in a list, but I could choose to display them in a grid format where I'm going to get more of a thumbnail view. So this is quite useful if you want to be able to see a preview of the document. Now, I actually find this a little bit too cumbersome. I prefer to have them in a long list, but again, that is very much personal preference. I can even upload documents from my C drive directly from here as well. So if I have something, for example, this file just here, tubbleorders.xlsx, I can select it, click on open, and it's effectively going to upload that into Microsoft 365 and save it into OneDrive. So you can see it's opened it directly in Excel Online. I can close this tab down and you'll see now at the top of my quick access list, I have Tubble Orders 1. And because this is an Excel file, if I click on my Excel filter, I should be able to see it at the top of the list as well. So really nice and straightforward. Now, aside from the stuff that we have in the middle here, you're probably wondering where you can access your applications from. Well, all of that action happens over on the left-hand side. Notice we have a menu bar and some of these icons should look really familiar. This is where we can see Outlook, Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Now, yours might not look exactly the same as mine, but if you click on the app launcher at the top, that's going to allow you to see the full list of applications. And if we click on all apps, we can see everything that we have available in a big long list in alphabetical order. And what you see in here will very much depend on the Microsoft 365 subscription that you signed up for. So if we want to open any application, we can simply click on it from here. So once again, if we click on Excel, one thing you need to remember is that when you access Excel this way through the Microsoft 365 portal, you're actually working in the online version of Excel. So if I was to open a blank workbook, this looks a little bit different to the desktop version that you might be used to working with. And we're going to talk a lot more about this a bit later on in the course, but just get used to this idea that we can work online in the portal and we can also work with our desktop applications and everything synchronizes between the two versions. Now, the idea behind these online versions of our apps is so that we can access and work on our documents when we're on the go, as long as we have an internet connection. So this offers a lot more flexibility than having to be at your desk with your desktop version of Excel in order to work on a file. I could be sitting on a train, but as long as I have a Wi-Fi connection, I can access my documents on my laptop or on my tablet or even on my phone. So the general rule that I tend to work to is if I'm out and about and I need to access documents on the go, I will log into the portal. If I'm sitting at my desk and I want to work on a Word document, for example, I'll use my desktop applications. And I'm going to show you in the next lesson exactly how you can install those desktop applications. Final couple of things to mention here. Notice we have a search bar at the top, and this is a universal search. So this will search across files, folders, SharePoint sites, people, and applications. So I could type in, for example, Adele, and it's going to find my colleague Adele. I could type in the word alpha, and you can see it's finding some OneNote notebooks that have alpha in the title, but it's also finding a couple of SharePoint sites as well. I could type in, let's go for bios, and there it's found a Word document, bios for authors. So this search is universal and it's pretty powerful. Now, if we cast our eyes all the way over to the right-hand side, you can see we've got a few things up here. If we click on our profile picture, this is where we can go to sign out. This is also where we can go to view our Microsoft 365 account details and profile. And if we have more than one account, this is also where we can switch accounts. We also have a cog icon up here. This is how we can access our settings, and we don't really have a great deal of settings in here. We can do a few fun things. We can change the theme that we're using. So I'm going to scroll down, and I think I'm going to use this reddish pink theme. We can also switch to dark mode if that's what we prefer. And I know that a lot of people find it a bit easier on their eyes if they use a dark theme. Now I'm going to stick to a white theme for the balance of this course, but just know that that option is there if you need it. We also have a link in here that allows us to change our password, so be aware of that as well. And the final thing to mention here is we have access to something called My Day. And this basically feeds through to your Outlook calendar. You can see we have a little mini calendar view. I can see that tomorrow I have a project meeting coming up, and I can also switch across to To-Do, which is going to show me any tasks that I've added. So this is just a nice way of being able to access this information without actually having to open up Outlook. So that's pretty much everything that you need to know about the Microsoft 365 interface. Have a little explore, have a little play around with it, and I will see you in the next lesson. As I've already mentioned, when you're working within the Microsoft 365 portal, any application that you use is basically the online version. For example, if I open up the app launcher and let's just very quickly open up Word. You can see that Word opens in its own browser window, and if I click on a blank document, I'm now working in Word Online. And if you're used to using the Word desktop version, this is going to look very different. The online applications are basically slimmed down versions of the full desktop applications. So whilst we can do most things that we would expect to be able to do in a Word document from here, there are some things that we can't do. For example, one thing we can't do in the online version of Word that we can do in the desktop version is a mail merge. So the way to think about these online versions is that these are perfect if you are on the go. For example, if I may be traveling somewhere for the day and I'm on a train working on my laptop or maybe a tablet device or a phone, as long as I have a Wi-Fi connection, I can log into my portal, fire up Word and start working on my documents. And that's generally how I tend to use these. I very much use them when I'm on the go, but when I'm sitting at my desk, I prefer to use the full desktop version. Now, of course, these online versions aren't the only versions that we have access to, so don't worry, we can still use the full desktop versions. But if you've signed up for Microsoft 365, you're going to need to install the Microsoft 365 full version applications. Now, fortunately, this is made very easy because we can do it from our portal. So let's close down a few of these windows and just go back to our home page. Notice over on the right-hand side, we have an Install Apps button. And we can choose to install our Microsoft 365 apps. So that includes things like Outlook, OneDrive, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And then if we have other applications as part of our subscription, we can go to other install options. We would also come here if we wanted to install the applications in a language that isn't English. Now, previously, if you've just had the desktop version of the applications, you might have been used to using 2013, 2016, 2019. When you download the applications through Microsoft 365, the version of the applications that you're using is Microsoft 365. And the advantage of this is that Microsoft 365 applications are continuously updated. So no more downloading and buying different versions of Office every few years or so. Your subscription ensures that you always get the latest updates and access to the newest features. So it's pretty cool in that way. Now, if you're wondering what the setup process is here, I can't walk through the whole process with you because I already have these applications installed, but it is very straightforward. If you were to click on Microsoft 365 apps just here, it's going to download a setup file. And that setup file will download to the Downloads folder on your PC. And this is what that file looks like, officesetup.exe. So once this has finished downloading, you simply need to come to your Downloads folder and double click on this exe file. And that will pretty much kick off the install process, and you just really need to sit there and wait for it to finish. And I would generally allow between 20 minutes and an hour for everything to install and update, depending on the speed of your internet connection. Once the installation is finished, you can then access your desktop applications in the same way as you always would. So if you go down to your Start button, again, this very much depends on the version of Windows that you're using. I'm using Windows 11, but if I go to All Apps, we should then be able to find our Microsoft Office applications in here. For example, there is Excel. And if you want these pinned to the taskbar, like I have them running across the bottom to make them super easy to access, you can simply right-click, go to More, and choose Pin to Taskbar. Mine's already pinned, so that's why it says Unpin. So my recommendation is that you go through and you pin all of the applications that you use most frequently. And for me, that would be Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. So now if we open up Word, you can see the version is Microsoft 365. If I click on blank document, this should look a lot more familiar to you. We have our ribbon structure and we're ready to go in the full version. Now, if you're wondering how we can create a Word document in the desktop version on our PC and then access it through the portal, well, this is where we save into OneDrive, which is Microsoft's cloud storage. Now, I don't want to go too much off on a tangent right now. We do have a whole section on OneDrive a bit later on. But just be aware that if I was to save this document, I would save it into the cloud, and that means I can access it through the online version in the portal. So that's how you can install your desktop applications. I will see you in the next lesson.
For the next section, you'll want to download the course exercise files. Click the link below in the video description to get these. You can also scroll through the details to find timestamps for each section in this course. If you're enjoying this training, please leave us a comment.
It's time now to complete the first exercise of the course, Exercise 01. And this isn't really an exercise that requires an answer or a demonstration. I just want you to make sure you have a few things set up first of all. So I'd like you to ensure that you have a working Microsoft 365 account. I'd like you to open Microsoft 365 and familiarize yourself with the interface. Make sure you know where to go to access your apps, and also get familiar with the recent list and where your files are stored. Finally, I'd like you to install the desktop applications if you haven't done that already. Remember, we have a button on that homepage that will allow us to do this nice and quickly. That is pretty much all there is to this exercise. Once you've done these things, you are ready to dive into section 3. So I'm going to head over there now, and I'll see you there. Being able to access and work with our email is one of the most fundamental parts of working within Microsoft 365. So I have a 2-part lesson, and you're going to find this really useful if you've been predominantly used to using the desktop version of Outlook, because the online version is quite different. So over the next 2 lessons, we're going to explore some of those differences and just get you acquainted with where everything lives in the online version of Outlook. So we're going to start from our portal again. We're going to click on our applications launcher and notice that Outlook is the first one in our apps list. Let's fire it up. So when we open up Outlook online, it's going to take us straight to our inbox. Now remember, this is the inbox for the account associated with your Microsoft 365 email address. And immediately this looks very different from the desktop version of Outlook. Notice running across the top, we have what we call the simplified ribbon. And this ribbon takes up a lot less space than the one that we're normally used to working with in not only Outlook, but our other Microsoft applications. We have a home ribbon, where we're going to find most of the tasks that we frequently use. We have a view ribbon where we can manage our settings. And then finally, we have a help ribbon. Now, the first thing to point out is if you cast your eyes all the way over to the left-hand side where we have this menu bar of different icons, the top one here is where we click if we want to read and manage our email. Notice the one below that is the calendar. We're going to get onto that a little bit later. And then below that, we have our people area. So this is where we go to manage things like contacts. Now the next icon here allows us to access a files library. So this is going to show us any files that we've shared back and forth with other people via email. And then we have some applications that we can access. So we can open up a to-do list. We can access Viva Engage or Yammer from here. We can jump to the Bookings application. We have access to OneDrive. And also if we click more apps at the bottom, and that's going to allow us to jump to other apps that we use frequently. Now in this lesson, we're simply going to focus on email. Now the structure of our inbox in Outlook Online is fairly standard. You can see we have our folder pane on the left-hand side. If for some reason you can't see this, notice just above we have 3 lines. When we hover over, it says toggle left pane. So if we click this, it gives us a little bit more real estate on the screen, but we lose that folder list. So you can toggle between this depending on how much space you need. Personally, I always like to be able to see my Outlook email folders. And underneath that, there are my folders. Now notice at the top here, we have a favorites area. And we can basically add any folder or folder that we create to our favorites area. So in general, folders that I access fairly frequently, I will add those to favorites. For example, if I wanted to add, let's just say junk mail to my favorites, I can right click on the folder and just simply click add to favorites, and it moves it up to this favorites area. If I want to remove, again, right click, remove from favorites. Notice with my inbox, I have 27 next to it, which means I have 27 unread emails. And if you take a look through your inbox, you'll notice that the ones that are unread have a colored bar next to them. They also show in bold. Now we can filter our inbox so that we only see the unread mail. Notice just above here we have a little filter icon, and I can choose to filter by numerous different things. So I can filter for all unread mail. I could also filter for all mails that are flagged. Currently I don't have any. Or I can filter for emails that have been sent directly to me, those that have file attachments, or emails that mention me. I also have some sorting options in here as well. So by default, your emails are going to be sorted by date, newest to oldest. But obviously you can change this in here. Now, when it comes to viewing mail, if I click on this email from Alex, which is about lunch, he's asking me if I want tacos on Tuesday. When we click on a mail, it's going to show in the reading pane. Now, I have my reading pane displayed on the right-hand side. If you prefer to have it displayed at the bottom, you can change this by clicking on the View tab, clicking the drop-down underneath Layout, and there where we have Reading Pane, we can choose to show it on the bottom instead. Again, this is one of those items that is very much personal preference. You could even hide it altogether if you prefer just to see your email list. Now, I like to have my reading pane and I like to show it on the right. And staying within this view menu, we can also do things like change the density. So currently mine's set to roomy. I could change it to cozy, and you can see we have a little bit less room there, or I can change it to compact. So again, modify this to whatever suits you best. Another option in here that you might want to change is underneath messages. Notice that we have the choice as to if we want our messages to be grouped into conversations or if you want to show each message separately. So what this basically means is if I'm having a conversation backwards and forwards with Alex, it will show as one email in my inbox to save a little bit of space. And when I click on that, I can see the entire conversation. Now, some people really like this feature. Other people like to have each message in their inbox separately. So you can simply click that option if that's what you prefer. Now, when it comes to actually replying and forwarding messages, there's a few different ways that we can do this. If we click on the message to open it in the reading pane, notice we have some icons just here. We can reply to all, or we can forward the message. Again, we have 3 dots. Remember, 3 dots denotes more actions. And we have so many different things that we can do with our emails in here. We can delete the email, mark it as unread. We can add a flag. We can print, download it, view. All the things you would expect when you're working with your email. Also notice if we're going to reply, we have a little bit of AI in action just here. Because what Outlook Online will do is it will read the message and it will suggest things that I might want to reply with. So what I could do here is I could start my reply with sounds good to me. Let's click it. It's going to open up the reply addressed to Alex and it automatically inputs that text and I simply just need to click send to send that off. So it allows me to work a little bit more efficiently and quicker. Now, when it comes to composing a new email, notice on the home ribbon, we have a new email button just here. Now we do have a drop down because we can choose to create a new email from here, or if we want to create a new event in our calendar, we can do that from directly within our inbox. We can create a new group, a storyline post in Yammer. We can create a Word document, a spreadsheet, or a presentation directly from within our email. We don't have to open up those individual applications. Now in this case, we're just going to choose to create a new email message. Let's click on Mail. And as you would expect, that's going to open up in the reading pane and we can then address it. I'm going to send mine to Adele. We have a CC field just here if we need to CC anybody, and we could also add the BCC field if that is also a requirement. I'm going to add a quick subject and a quick message for Adele. And at this stage, I have a few different options. If I get partway through my message and then maybe I click off somewhere else, that message is going to be saved to my drafts folder. So you can see here over in favorites, I have drafts. Let's click on it. And the top one there is the message that I just composed. I could choose to click the drop down next to send and I could schedule the send. So maybe I don't want to send this email until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. I can click on schedule send and it's going to allow me to enter my parameters. I can delete the draft by clicking on the trash can, or I can simply click on send. It's also worth noting that the keyboard shortcut for sending email is Control Enter. So those are some of the features in Outlook Online. Join me in the next lesson when we're going to take a look at some of the settings and how you can customize your inbox. In the previous lesson, we started to take a look at some of the basics of working with Outlook Online. And we're going to just finish off by taking a look at a few other features of Outlook Online and also how we can customize our personal settings. Now I'm going to start out in this lesson just by talking about app mentions. Currently, I've got an email from Adele selected and we can see that in the reading pane. Now notice something about the body of this email. It says, "Hey at Deb Ashby." So what Adele has done here is she has app mentioned me to really highlight this and target the message towards me. And app mentions are fairly common these days across social media applications. If you've ever used anything like Twitter, you're probably very familiar with app mentions. Now, the cool thing about these app mentions is that this will appear in your notifications area. So if you take a look all the way up in the top right-hand corner, notice we have a little bell icon just here. And this is where we can open up our notifications pane. And check it out, what we have down below. It says, Adele mentioned you. So I can click on my notifications and it's going to jump me to the email that I've been mentioned in. Now, if we want to app mention somebody in an email, let's just quickly create a brand new email. All we need to do is type in the @ symbol, and then it's going to pull up the names of the people within your organization. So maybe I want to target this email towards Grady. I can simply select him from the list, and notice as soon as I @ somebody, it also adds them into the To field. Now, another cool thing about these @ mentions is that you can modify them and it doesn't affect their functionality. For example, hello Grady Archie is a little bit too formal if this is a colleague I know really well. I might want it to just say @Grady, so I can simply delete out the word Archie and that @mention is still going to work. So just be aware of that. Now, I don't actually want to compose this email, so I'm going to click on discard to get rid of the email. Now, much like when we were on the Microsoft 365 homepage, the portal page, we can view our mini calendar and our to-do list from within our inbox. Again, if you cast your eyes up to the icons on the right, you can see that we have this little icon just here, and this will open up the My Day pane. So this is the same pane as what you see in the portal. If we click this, we get a mini calendar view. I can see any meetings that are coming up, and I can also see via the To-Do tab any tasks that I need to action. So I find this really useful because a lot of the time, if I'm replying to emails, I might have people asking me about certain events occurring on certain dates. And I don't like to have to keep switching backwards and forwards to my calendar in order to put that into context. So it's quite nice to be able to open this little pane where you can see your calendar up here. So just be aware that you have that option as well. Now, of course, as with anything in Microsoft 365, you can completely customize what you're looking at in your inbox. And there are a couple of different areas we can go to. The first thing we can customize is what we're seeing in our ribbons running across the top. For example, I'm currently clicked on the home ribbon. If I want to customize these icons and what I'm seeing here, if we go all the way over to the right hand side and click the 3 dots, that's that More Options button again, notice we have Customize right at the bottom. And if we hover over it, we get a little screen tip that says Customize the ribbon, add, remove and rearrange buttons. Now if we go into here, at the top it's going to show us what we currently have on our ribbon. So I have delete, archive, report, sweep. And if I use the scroller, I can scroll across and see all of the commands that are currently on the home ribbon. Now, if I decide that I don't actually use some of these, I can simply delete them. For example, maybe I want to remove the sweep button. I can just click the cross and that's going to get rid of it. And what you'll see is under the buttons section, sweep no longer has a tick in it because it's not included on my ribbon. Everything else that has a tick is currently on that home ribbon. And as you can imagine, if you want to put it back, you can simply put a check in the box and it's going to add that back in. If I want to move or change the order, I can simply pick up the option, drag it and drop it to where I want it to be. Now in this groups area, these are the groups that these commands belong to. So if you take a look just above where we have delete, archive, report, the actual group that these belong to is the move and delete group. And you can see here is the move and delete group. So I could edit this group and change the name. I could delete it by clicking on the trash can icon. And if I want to add another group, I have an add group button just here. I can customize it and change the name, and I can add commands to that group. Now I'm not going to do that, so let's just delete. So you can customize everything that you have on your ribbon, and you have that option for every single ribbon. So if I move across to view and click the 3 dots, I'm going to have a customize button just there, but this time it's related to the view ribbon. Now when it comes to our overall settings for our inbox, if we go to the view ribbon and click on view settings, this is going to open up the settings pane where we can really go through and get very granular about how our email account is set up. It's also worth noting that we can access this same area by clicking on the cog icon at the top here and choosing View All Outlook Settings. That's going to take us to the same place. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do recommend that you go through each category and each section and really set up how you want your Outlook to look and function. We've got options in here to adjust how it looks if we want to use dark mode or light mode. We can set up how we want to be notified and what we want to be notified about. We can create ourselves categories, and we're going to do that a little bit later on. And if we click on the email section, again, we can do things in here like create rules, specify how we want to manage our junk email, and also do things like set up email signatures. Now we're going to be diving in and out of this throughout the balance of this section, but just be aware that that's where you can access all of your settings. Most of us these days are receiving so much mail that it's important that we have some strategies in place for managing all of that email. And one of the best ways to manage and organize our email is to create folders. Folders mean we can keep our inbox fairly clean and under control, and it also allows us to group mails that are related to specific projects or topics in one place, making it a lot easier for us to search and find what we're looking for. Now, by default, Outlook has a number of folders already inbuilt, and you can see these folders just here. So we have things like inbox, drafts, sent items, deleted items, junk mail, so on and so forth. So you don't need to create these because these will be automatic. What we can create are what we call custom folders. So these are folders that might be related to specific projects or specific people or specific topics. For example, notice next to inbox, I have a little arrow just here. And that's because if we click on this, I already have a folder that I've created underneath my inbox. And this is what we call a subfolder. New joiner stuff is a subfolder of my inbox. And in general, I like to create these types of folders as subfolders of my inbox. And then I can create subfolders of subfolders if required. Now, the process of creating folders is extremely simple. Let's right-click on the inbox and notice the first option here in the menu is Create New Subfolder. As soon as I do that, it gives me a little field to type into. So let's call this, we'll just call this Marketing, for example. Hit Enter, and now I have a brand new folder. Notice that these folders will be organized in alphabetical order. Now, some people find that quite annoying because there's normally a very specific order that you like your folders to be in. Now, the way that I get around this, because the default behavior is to order alphabetically, is I like to add a number on the front. So maybe I want new joiner stuff to be at the top. What I would do here is right click and choose rename, and I would add a number. So you might want to add 1 or 01, and that's going to pop that up to the top. And then I can rename marketing, and we'll put 02 on the front just here. That's just a little technique that I like to use to get those folders in the order that suits me. If I want to create a subfolder of marketing, I could right click again, create new subfolder, and we'll call this one newsletters, and hit enter. So now I have a subfolder. So now this is a subfolder of marketing. If I collapse up the marketing folder, I no longer see that subfolder, but I can still see the other folders that are within the inbox. So my recommendation to you is to go through and start adding folders. And you can call these whatever you like and organize your email however is most appropriate to you. Now, when you have folders like this, you're going to want to move mail to those folders. Because generally what we're aiming for when we're working with our email is at the end of the day, we want to end up with what we call inbox 0. We want to have 0 mails in our inbox, meaning that we've either dealt with the email or we've filed that email away. Now, that is pretty tough for most people, and I'm not the greatest at this myself. But what I try to do is I try to schedule just 30 minutes at the end of the week to really go through my inbox and either delete, file, or store in a folder. So if I want to move some mails, for example, let's just move this top one here, and I'm going to move this to the marketing folder. I just simply drag and drop, and the default action is to move. Now, what about if I want to copy as opposed to move? Well, again, there are a few different ways that we can do this. We can right click on the email and notice we have a copy option just here. So I'm going to put this in marketing, and you can see that it's now showing as an unread email in the marketing folder, but it's also still in my inbox. So don't forget this right-click menu. We have lots of options in here. We could utilize this for moving as well. We don't necessarily have to drag and drop. Choose whichever option you prefer. We can move multiple simply by selecting multiple emails. We can click on the circle next to the email, or alternatively, we can hold down Shift, click to select a bulk of emails. Now, a couple of other things that we can do with these folders that we've created. We can right click, again we're going to see a contextual menu, and we can delete the folder. We can empty the folder, which means it's going to delete all of the emails that are within that folder. We can rename it, or we can add it to favorites. So maybe for this marketing folder, I want to add that to my favorites, and there it is. Again, right click and remove from favorites if you no longer want it there. Now, of course, we can do things like set up rules to automatically move mails that have specific criteria to folders that we've created. And of course, we will be covering that a little bit later on. But for the time being, that's really all there is to folders and subfolders, so I will see you in the next lesson. Being able to search for and find email is extremely important. We all receive so much email these days that being able to find emails quickly is going to be imperative. And in the last lesson, I showed you one way that you can organize your mail by creating custom folders and moving mail into those. But what about if we just want to search through our inbox to find specific emails? Well, this is where we can use the search facility in Outlook Online. And fortunately, the search facility that we have available is really comprehensive. Now, if you cast your eyes to the top of your inbox, notice we have a big old bar here that says search. If we click in this, notice to the left, we now can specify the scope of our search. So the default is to search all folders in our inbox. But if we click this drop down just here, we can choose specific folders to search in. Now, in general, when I'm looking for something, I tend to want to search through everything. So I keep this on all folders. Also notice that it's bringing me up some suggestions. So maybe I want to search for all emails from Adele. I can simply select Adele here. It's going to go away, and there is my search result. If I want to clear this, I can simply click on the cross to remove Adele, and then I could search for something else. Now, in this search bar, we can type in all different types of criteria. We can select people's names like we just did. We can type in keywords or specific phrases that we're looking for. And if you prefer to use search in a slightly more structured way, if you take a look over to the right-hand side, notice we have a filters option just here. If we click to open this up, this is going to open up kind of like a form where we can go through and enter in our criteria. So once again, we can specify where we're searching. I'm going to keep this on all folders, and I could complete the from field, the to field, the CC, the subject, or I can add keywords. I can even search for mail between two different dates, or if the mail has attachments. So maybe I want to search for all emails that have a certain keyword. So I'm going to go for tacos. Let's click on search and take a look at that. It's showing me all of the emails where that keyword exists. So we can use this filter to combine things together. If I want to refine this a little bit more, and I'm only interested in emails with the keyword tacos from, let's say, Alex, I can choose him in the from field, click on search again, and it's going to refine my list down to just that email. And notice what we have in the search bar. It's added in Alex and also the keyword of tacos. Let's click filters again. If we want to clear out all of our information, we have a clear filters button just here, which will get rid of that criteria. So the search bar at the top is pretty powerful when you're searching for emails. Now, another way that we can search for emails is by utilizing search folders. And search folders are brilliant if you find yourself running the same search over and over. So maybe I am always looking for emails from Alex Wilbur. He's my manager. I like to keep track of what he's sending me. So instead of coming up to the search bar and filling out my criteria each and every time, I can simply create a search folder, which makes this whole process a lot more efficient. So if we scroll down our folder list, notice towards the bottom we have something called search folders. So let's say, for example, there's a specific search that I run frequently. Instead of coming up to the search bar at the top and having to complete all my criteria, I can create a search folder instead. So if you take a look towards the bottom of the folder list, notice we have search folder just here. If we right click, we can create a new search folder. And we have reasonably limited options in the online version. If you're working with Outlook Desktop, you can really go to town on this and set up some really specific criteria for your search folder. Now I'm going to start really basic. Let's just create a search folder which only shows me all email that's currently unread. So I'm going to choose unread email. Let's click on create. And you can see now I have a folder called unread email. When I click on this, it's going to apply that filter, and I'm just seeing all the mails that I haven't currently had time to look at. Let's right click again and create another new search folder. This time I'm only interested in email that's been sent directly to me and doesn't have anybody else in the to field. So I'm going to select this. We can rename this. So I'm going to say emails to me. Let's click on create. I get another new search folder and I can click on this. Now, just to show you how much more powerful these search folders are in the desktop version of Outlook, I've switched across to desktop Outlook. Again, take a look at the bottom, we have search folders. If I right click, again, I can create a new search folder, but the criteria I can specify is a lot more varied. For example, maybe I'm interested in mails specifically from Alex. I could choose mail from specific people. And then when I click on choose and go to my global address list, I can choose Alex from the list. Let's click on from, click on OK. And then when I click on OK, notice I have my search folder just here, and it's just going to show me emails that I've received from Alex. Once again, we can right click, we can rename the folder. We're going to call this mails from Alex. So the options that you get, the criteria you can add when you're working in the desktop version is a lot more varied than what you get in Outlook Online. So just be aware of that. Two other options that we have available in Outlook Online to help us manage our emails are Focused Inbox and Sweep. So let's take a look at how both of these work because they are so simple. Now we're going to start with Focused Inbox. If you take a look at my email list right now, you'll see that in the middle, I'm just displaying my inbox in one big long email list. So everything that hits my email account is coming into my inbox. And then once it gets to my inbox, one of two things is happening. It's either staying in my inbox, so I can read it and deal with it later, or it's being moved to a specific folder or some other action by any rule that I have set up on my mailbox. Now, we haven't spoken about rules as yet. We are going to get into that a little bit later on. So for the time being, everything that's being sent to me is just coming into my email list in my inbox. Now, currently, I don't have Focused Inbox turned on. But if I was to go to the View tab, and we're going to go into View Settings, notice that in the Layout group, the first option we have here is Focused Inbox. So what exactly is this? Well, this is a little piece of functionality where Outlook helps us sort our email so that we can focus on what's most important. So basically, when an email hits your inbox, Outlook will read it and determine if this is something that requires your attention or is maybe something that can be left for later. And this behavior, this action that Outlook employs gets better over time as it learns the types of emails that you generally read and the types of emails that you maybe leave for a while or delete. So when I turn on Focused Inbox, most of the time I get all of the email from actual real people into my Focused Inbox, and things like newsletters and other things will go into my other inbox. Now currently, as I said, I don't have mine turned on. I'm using Don't Sort My Messages, but if I select the top option here, Sort Messages into Focused and Other, and then click Save at the bottom, notice the change that now happens. Instead of just Inbox at the top here, I now have two folders, Focused and Other. So Focused is where I'm going to find all of my important emails, so I can focus on those first of all, and Other is where I'm going to find all of the emails that Outlook has determined aren't as important. Now, because I've just turned this on, it's not showing anything in Other. It's going to need a few more emails to come in before this behavior kicks in. Now, some people really like this, other people don't. And the reason why some people don't like this is because they tend to forget that they have this other folder, and it causes them to miss emails that maybe they do actually want to read. So I'm going to leave this up to you. It is there as a feature to help you focus on only the important things. Now I'm going to go back into View Settings. I'm just going to choose Don't Sort My Messages. Now if we just jump across to the desktop version of Outlook and take a look at how this works in here, notice again, currently I don't have Focused Inbox set on my inbox, so I'm just seeing my emails divided down into all emails, and then we have an unread folder at the top as well. If I did want to turn on Focused Inbox, I would just need to go to View And here we have the Show Focused Inbox button. Let's click to turn this on, and again we get something very similar. We get a focused folder and we get an other folder. So that's how you would do that in the desktop version. Now the other option that you might want to use is if we go back to the Home tab, this option just here, the sweep command. And you can see here as we hover over, it says make a rule around the selected email authors. So this is a little rule that really depends on what you currently have clicked in your inbox. So if I click on, let's go for Alex again, and then click on sweep, you can see here it's going to sweep messages from Alex specifically, and I can choose to move all messages from the inbox folder to whatever folder I specify. So I could create a new folder down here, maybe call it Mails from Alex, and every time I receive a mail from Alex, this sweep rule is going to activate. Now this first option will only move messages currently in my inbox to whatever folder I've specified. If I want to move all messages from the inbox from Alex and any future messages that he sends me, I would need to select the second option. And then we have two other options in here. I can always keep the latest message from Alex and move all of the rest into whatever folder I've specified. Or I can choose to always move messages from Alex that are older than 10 days from my inbox folder. So again, this is just making you a little bit more efficient when it comes to managing emails. So if you like this option, I would recommend that you turn this on. So those are a couple of additional options that you have when it comes to managing your emails. Applying flags and categorizing our email are another couple of methods that we can use to manage our inbox a little bit better. And both flags and categories allow us to group together mails of a specific type and make it a lot easier for us to find what we're looking for. So let's start out by applying flags. Now, flags in themselves are pretty functional. For example, if we take a look at this email from Alex about Taco Tuesday, maybe this is a really important email and I don't want it to get lost down in my email list. So I might choose to flag this email, and maybe I want to remind myself to follow this up with Alex a little bit later on. Now notice as I hover over the mail in my inbox, I have a little flag icon just here. So this is what we call a quick flag. I can click it and it's just going to apply a general flag to this message. So immediately now this stands out in my inbox. And you can do this with pretty much any mail. I could flag this one from Adele, maybe another one down here from Alex. So if I'm working away in my inbox and I'm looking for any email that I have flagged, I can then use my filter and I can choose flagged. And that's just going to pull all of those to the top, making it super easy for me to find what I'm looking for. So in general, I use flags on emails that I want to be able to find quickly or emails that I need to follow up on. Now, if I want to remove the flag, again, we just simply click on the flag and it changes to a tick. Now, aside from flagging emails directly in the email list, we can also go to the home ribbon and we have a little flag icon just here. Now, if we apply flags from the home ribbon, notice we have a little bit more functionality, because what we can do here is we can choose what type of flag that we want. So if I need to follow up this email with Alex tomorrow, I could choose to set a tomorrow flag. So if I assign this, it gives it a flag. And what that means is that I'm going to get a reminder tomorrow that I need to follow up this email. And we have various different options in here. We can clear the flag from here as well. We can choose to follow up tomorrow, this week, next week, no date, or we can mark as complete. Now, what also happens when you flag emails, and again, I'm just going to flag this one from Alex, is that it adds it to your to-do list. So this gives you an idea as to how all of the Microsoft 365 applications work together. If I go over to my icons running down the left-hand side, notice that one of them is To Do. And To Do is a little application in its own right. It allows us to manage and track tasks and to-do items. So if we quickly open up To Do, what we should find is that in the flagged email section just here, we can see anything that we flagged in our inbox as a to-do item. And you can see there is the message Taco Tuesday. I can click on it and I can add a little bit more detail. and we're going to take a deeper dive into To Do a little bit later on. But just be aware that it links through to this application. Now, the other thing that we can do that can be really useful is we can apply categories to our emails. And these categories are color coded. Now, there are a couple of different ways that we can get to categories. We can right click and go to Categorize, or alternatively on the home ribbon, this little tag icon or label icon, this is your categories area. Now, if we click the drop down, what we're going to see in here is a bunch of different categories that are just named with generic blue, green, orange, purple, red, yellow category names. Now, of course, these are simply here for you to rename. So what we can do is we can go into Manage Categories. Here are all of the default categories, and we can go through and we can change the names. So if we click on the pencil icon, I might want to have a category that's related to Project Alpha, and I can assign a color to this. I'm going to leave these on the default colors. I'm going to edit this one. We'll call this Marketing. And I'm just going to go through and name some of these other categories. So I've just named the first 5 categories here. I'm not going to have a red or a yellow category. So any categories you're not using, you can simply click on the trash can to delete those out. So now what I can do here is I can assign emails to specific categories. I can right click, go to Categorize, and now I can see my new customized categories. So let's assign this to the fun stuff category. You can see it gives it a little tag just here. I'm going to assign this one to, let's go for Manage Your Emails. Let's assign this one to Project Alpha, so on and so forth. I think you get the idea. So once we've assigned categories to emails, if we just want to search for all emails that are part of the fun stuff category, notice when we hover over the tag here, it says search for all messages with the category fun stuff. So I can simply click, it's going to go away, and it's going to show me those results. Notice at the top here in the search field, it also has applied fun stuff. So if I click the cross just here, just type the category that I'm looking for up here. So if I go for Project Alpha, you can see it shows me everything that contains the word Project Alpha, but it also shows me the category I created. So I can choose Project Alpha, and it's going to run that search. So flags and categories are a really helpful way to help you keep on top of emails that you need to follow up on, and also categorize emails of the same type. When working with Outlook Mail, it's important to understand the difference between archiving and deleting. So let's take a look at these 2 different kinds of behavior. Now, when we delete mail, and I'm just going to scroll down to, let's go for this mail just here. I'm going to select it and click on the trash can to delete it. That email is effectively going to be moved to my deleted items folder. So if you take a look in the folder list, one of the default folders is deleted items. Let's click on this, and this is where all of our deleted messages go initially. Now, eventually, these will get deleted out of the deleted folder. And the time period that your mail is retained in this particular folder is very much dependent on the settings that your administrator has set. I know at some organizations that I've worked at previously, email is held in the deleted items folder for about 90 days before it's permanently deleted. So if you're unsure as to what the policy is where you work, then it's definitely worth sending an email to your IT administrator. Now, the good thing about emails being held here is that if you do accidentally delete something, it is pretty simple to get it back. So for example, if I deleted this top mail accidentally, I can select it in my deleted items folder. I can right click and I can choose to restore this. And mails that you restore will be restored back to the folder that you deleted them from. Now, another tip when working with deleted items is you can, if you want to, just choose to get rid of all your deleted items. Maybe you're definitely sure that you don't need to keep these and you don't even want to retain them for a specific time period. What you can do is select next to deleted items this icon just here, which is going to select all emails in the deleted items folder. And you can then simply press the delete key on your keyboard to get rid of all of those permanently. And it is worth noting that once you do delete them from your deleted items folder, they are gone for good. Now, I'm not going to do that, so let's just deselect all of my messages. So that's how deleting works in Outlook Online. So what is archiving? Well, let's click back on our inbox and let's go to this mail just here. Now, maybe this mail is something that I need to keep. Now, that might be because it's informational and it's useful, or it might be that I need to keep this mail for something like compliance purposes. This isn't a mail that I need to access or read every single day, but I definitely need to keep it. Now, there are a couple of different ways that we could deal with this. We could just move it off into a folder, or alternatively, we could archive it. Now, one of the advantages with archiving is that when you archive emails, it helps save space within your mailbox. When you're working with Outlook, every person's mailbox has a specific size limit. And if you start to get near your limit, you might find that you have problems sending and receiving mail. So in general, we want to try and keep our mailbox as small as possible so that it functions accurately. Now, when we move mail to folders, that mail is still contributing towards the amount of space that we're using. Whereas if we archive an email, it saves it off to a different part of the system, so it doesn't count towards your inbox total. So archiving effectively allows you to retain important emails, but it also allows you to keep the amount of space that you're using in your inbox low. Now, archiving is extremely simple. We can archive one or more emails. We just need to make our selection. I'm going to hold down Shift to select these 3 emails. On the Home tab, we have an archive button. It's this one just here. Or alternatively, if we right click, we also have an archive option just here. So if I click archive, it's going to archive those emails, and notice in the folder list I have an archive folder. So I can click here and I can still see those emails that I've archived. So that is the difference between deleting email and archiving email. Email signatures are a great way of signing off our emails and providing the recipient with some useful information, such as our job title, email address, and contact details. We can create our own customized email signatures to new mails and/or replies. Now, I already have an email signature set up, so let's take a look at it. If I create a brand new email, you can see that when this opens, I have my contact details automatically input into this email. So immediately the recipient can see who this mail is coming from, they can see my job title, my company, and also my telephone number. Now I'm going to just discard this for a second because I have a slightly different behavior for when I'm replying to emails. So let's imagine that I want to reply to Alex. I'm just going to click on the reply button. Notice that my email signature doesn't come up just here. And that's because I've set it to only apply to new mails and not to replies. Now, the reason why I don't have it included in replies is that sometimes it can get a little bit annoying, particularly if you have quite a big and bulky email signature. It's a little bit more helpful just to have it in the initial email. But again, this is personal preference. You could set it for replies as well if you want to. So let's take a look at where we can find all of our email signature information and how we can create our own signature. Now for this, we're going to need to jump into our settings. So we're going to go straight up to the cog icon in the top right hand corner, and we're going to go to view all Outlook settings. Now notice that I'm currently in my email settings in the layout group. Now we're going to find email signatures underneath compose and reply. And here it is. You can see the current signature that I have set up. It's called Deb signature, and there it is just there. Now we can have more than one signature. We can have multiple and choose which one we want to use. So let's create a new signature. I'm just going to call this Deb signature 2. And then this is a simple case of designing your signature however you want. Now notice at the bottom we do have a formatting toolbar to help us out with this. You can even add things like images into your signature. So maybe you want to have your actual picture in your signature as well as your contact information. You can definitely do that. Now in this example, we're not going to add an image. I'm just going to put my name, and this one is just going to have my email address. Of course, I can apply formatting to this. I can make this bold. Maybe I want to change the font color to red. I can really go to town. So I'll leave this with you to have a little play around with. Let's scroll down and see what options we have. Now notice if I click the drop down, it doesn't allow me to select Deb Signature 2. And that's because I need to click on Save first of all, so it recognizes my new signature. Now I should be able to select Signature 2, which I can, and then I can choose if I want to have this signature applied for replies and forwards. Now what a lot of people do here is they have two separate signatures, one that has more information in it, like this one, and one that has just a little bit less. So you could have, for example, Deb's signature for new messages, and for replies and forwards, Deb's signature too. It's entirely up to you how you want to manage that. So that is pretty much all we need to do. Let's click on Save and close down this window. So now if I click on New Email, I should find that I have my full signature. But if I click on Reply, so let's reply to Adele, it's now showing Deb Signature 2. If we're going to be out of the office for any period of time, it's always a good idea to set up automatic replies, more commonly known as out of office. In general, we'd set an out of office if we are maybe going on a holiday for a week or so, but you can also set an out of office if you simply need some time to focus on something important, if you're in a meeting, or if you're simply just away from your desk. And setting up automatic replies is actually really helpful to your recipients because it enables them to understand why you might not be replying immediately, if you're in the office at all, when you're going to be back, and also alternative contact details. So let's take a look at how we can utilize automatic replies. Now again, this is something that you're going to find in your Outlook online settings. So we need to jump up to the cog icon once again and straight into View All Outlook Settings. Now we're in the email group, and this time we want to go down to this category here, Automatic Replies. Now currently mine is turned off because I am sitting here at my desk ready for any emails that come in, but I am actually going away for a long weekend to Dublin this week. So what I'm going to do is turn on automatic replies. I'm going to say send replies only during a time period, and then I can select when I want these automatic replies to be sent. So I'm going away on Sunday, so let's add that in, and I'm going to change this to 9 o'clock, and the end time I'm coming back on Tuesday. And again, I'm going to set this to 9 o'clock. So between 9 o'clock on Sunday and 9 o'clock on Tuesday, anybody who sends me an email is going to receive a notification that I'm not in the office. And just below here is where we can set a few additional options and also type out what our out of office message is going to be. So I could choose to block my calendar for this period. And I could enter a title in here of Dublin, for example. Now, I'm not going to do that. I could set it to also automatically decline new invitations for events that occur during this period. So let's say, for example, Adele schedules a meeting, invites me, but that meeting is on Monday, and I'm not going to be here on Monday. So instead of receiving that email and having to decline it, despite the fact that I'm away, I could choose to automatically decline that invite. And the third option here is I can decline and cancel my meetings during this period. So again, this is just a quick way of removing from the calendar anything that I have scheduled during the time that I'm going to be away. So specify which options you want to use. Now, when it comes down to the actual reply that we want to send, notice here we have two options. The first one is replies that are going to be sent to people who send us email from inside our organization. And the second one is for replies to people outside of our organization. So I might want to have a different message for people who work at my company from the message that gets sent to personal contacts, so maybe friends and family. My friends and family don't really need to know that during this period they need to contact my manager, Alex Wilbur, for any issues that they might have. We can set 2 separate messages. Alternatively, we can just deselect this box and just have one general message that goes to everybody. So let's add in our first message. So here I have 2 different messages for 2 very different groups of people. The first one is my business message. Thank you for your email. I'm currently out of the office with limited access to my email. I'll be returning on the 20th of June. If your issue is urgent, please contact Alex Wilbur on extension 4456. And of course, just above, I have my formatting bar if I want to liven this up a little bit. And then underneath, my second message is for my friends and family. It simply says, on holiday friends, if it's urgent, call my mobile. Now, again, you can see here, send replies outside of your organization. Now, it might be that somebody who works at a supplier or a vendor or a client who is technically outside of my organization, they could possibly send me an email. I don't really want this message going to them. So I could say send replies only to contacts, which is going to limit it to my personal contacts. All we need to do is click on save, and these automatic replies will be sent during the time period that we've specified. When working with colleagues and teammates, it's sometimes really useful to be able to share specific folders or have folders shared with you. For example, if we take a look at my folder list, you can see here I have a folder called Marketing, and beneath there I have a folder called Newsletters. Now, maybe I want to share this folder, Newsletters, with my colleague Adele so that she can access it and see everything inside. I could even give her permissions to create subfolders and also reply to messages as well. So how do I give somebody else access to a specific folder in my inbox? Well, the way that you need to look at this is you need to assign permissions for all of the top level folders. So I need to give Adele permission to my inbox, permission to the marketing folder, and then permission to the newsletters subfolder. So if we right click on the inbox, notice we have sharing and permissions. So this is going to open up the permission structure for the inbox folder. And what I can do is click on the plus and I can add Adele in here. There she is. Let's click on add and I can choose her level of access. So currently it says permission level none. She can pretty much do nothing with that folder. But if I click the drop down, I have different options that I can choose. And all of these are different. So if I go for owner, you can pretty much do everything if you have owner access. So with this level of access, Adele is going to be able to see the full details of this folder. She's going to be able to create items, create subfolders, edit everything. And she also has delete access for everything as well. So it's worth checking these, going through and seeing what level of access you want to give each specific person. Now I'm going to go with publishing editor, which means she can read the full details, but she can also do things like create items and create subfolders. So let's click on OK. So I've given her permission to my inbox. I now need to give her permission to the marketing folder. So again, we do the same thing. Right click, sharing and permissions. Let's add Adele and change her access to publishing editor. And we need to do the same for the subfolder newsletters because this is what I want her to have access to. So sharing and permissions, you guessed it, we're going to select Adele and we're going to change her access to publishing editor. So now that I've given her access to all of these folders, Adele can go in and open my shared folder. Now to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you how I would open a folder that Adele has shared with me. So what I'm going to do here is where we have folders at the top, let's right click and I'm going to say add shared folder or mailbox. Now in order for me to be able to open the mailbox and folder that Adele has shared with me, Adele needs to have gone through that same process that I just did and added me into the permissions for all of the folders. As long as she's done that, we can open the folder. So I want to open a folder that Adele has shared with me. Let's select her and click on add. And what you'll now see is if we scroll down to the bottom, notice I now have a new folder called Adele Vance. And when I open it up, you can see there is the folder she gave me access to, Project Delta. Now the level of access that Adele gave me to her folder is slightly less than what I've given her to mine. So she's given me editor access as opposed to publishing editor. And the difference here is that with editor access, I am unable to create new subfolders. So let's see if that is in fact true. If I right click on the inbox, check it out, create new subfolder is grayed out. So the level of permissions that you give someone really matters when it comes to the extent of what they can do with that specific shared folder. But that is how you can not only share your folders with somebody else, but also open inboxes that have been shared with you. Outlook rules help us manage our email. We can apply rules to our inbox with different conditions, and those conditions will execute certain tasks. For example, we could set up a rule so that when an email comes in from Adele, it automatically gets moved to a specific folder in my inbox. Or I could set up a rule that says, when an email comes in from Alex, assign it to the Manager Emails category and also flag it. So rules can help us become more efficient and help us manage and organize our email. So let's take a look at a couple of examples, and then I'll leave you to have a little play around with this. Now, to set up new rules, we need to jump into our Outlook settings. So we could click on the cog, but just to be a little bit different in this lesson, let's access it through the View ribbon. If we go into View Settings, this is going to take us into our settings, and notice under the email category, we have a rules section. Now at the top here, it basically defines what a rule is. It says you can create rules that tell Outlook how to handle incoming email messages. You choose both the conditions that trigger a rule and the actions the rule will take. Rules will run in the order shown in the list below, starting with the rule at the top. So you can have as many different rules as you like in here. So let's click Add a New Rule, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a fairly simple rule first of all, and that is that whenever I receive an email from Adele, it's going to get moved to a specific folder. Now before I do this, I'm actually going to create a new folder for all my emails from Adele. So underneath my inbox, I'm going to right click, create subfolder. I'm going to call this 03 Mails from Adele. Now let's go back into our rules and add rule. I'm just going to call it Adele Vance. And now we can select a condition. So my condition is that when the email is from, and then I can choose Adele. So when I receive an email from Adele, what is the action that I'd like Outlook to take? So I would like Outlook to move the message to the Adele folder. Now notice Adele isn't one of the folders that I'm getting here, so I can choose move to a different folder. It's going to expand that out, and there is the folder that I'm looking for. Now I could add another action. We are going to do that in the next example, so let's just keep this fairly basic first of all. And what I can also choose is to run the rule now. So that will run the rule on the mails currently in my inbox and move all mails from Adele into the correct folder. And of course, this rule will also apply going forward with new mails that arrive from Adele. And let's click on Save. So that rule is now toggled on, and you can see here it is currently running on my inbox. So we're just going to wait a couple of seconds for this rule to do its thing. And while we're waiting for that, it's also worth noting here that if we need to edit this rule, we have a little pencil icon just here, or we can delete the rule. Now it's finished running the rule, so let's close down this window and check it out. So if I go to the folder Mails from Adele, I can see there is a mail from Adele. Now you might be a little bit confused by this, because if we go back to the inbox, notice that I still have 2 emails from Adele sitting in there. They haven't been moved. Now you might think first of all that the rule isn't working, but if we actually click on one of these mails and check out the email address, notice that this is coming from no reply sharepointonline.com. So this is basically a document that she shared with me. Now, because our rule is looking for Adele's email address in order to apply the rule, that's why these 2 haven't been moved. Anything where Adele's actual email address is used have been moved. And for us, that is simply 1 email. So that rule appears to be working. Let's set up another rule that is slightly more complex. So we're going to go back into rules, Notice here, we can toggle the rule off at any time. So we don't necessarily have to delete it. We can keep it, but we can also disable the rule. Let's add another rule. And this rule, I'm just going to call Alex. So this time my condition is whenever I receive an email from Alex Wilbur, I want Outlook to categorize it. And I'm going to select a category of manager emails. I'm going to add another action because I also want it to mark it with the importance of high. And I could even add another action in here. So I'm going to say pin to top. Let's choose run the rule now and click on save. So once again, you can see that that has just run on my mailbox. Let's close this down and check out what happens. Notice right at the top, because it is pinned, I have an email from Alex Wilbur, Taco Tuesday. Notice that it's pinned to the top, which is what we specified. It's been assigned to the manager emails category, and it's been marked with high importance. So that is pretty much how rules work. Add some of your own, test them out, because they can be a great way of taking all the hard work out of managing email. Ensuring that our email accounts are set up in a way that really works for us is an extremely important part of working in Outlook. So in this lesson, we're going to take a look at some of the more advanced email settings, and then I'll leave it up to you to decide which ones you want to change. So we're going to go straight up to the cog icon in the top right-hand corner to open up our settings. Now, when you click on the cog, we get a pane where we can customize and modify a few helpful settings. So you can see here, we can toggle our focused inbox off or on. We can also toggle on if we require desktop notifications. So if you like to have a pop-up, like a little card in the corner of your screen every time you receive a new email, you can toggle this option on. We also get the opportunity to change the density of how we're viewing our emails. So I have mine set to roomy, but I could switch this to cozy or even compact. Now I think I'm going to switch mine to cozy. We then get another opportunity to choose if we want to group our emails into conversations. We did look at this earlier. And we can also customize how we're displaying our reading pane. So most of those options we've seen in earlier lessons of this course. So let's jump straight into our advanced Outlook settings. And once again, we have been in here before, but we took a very whistle-stop tour of some of the options. So let's deep dive in a little bit more detail. And in this particular lesson, we're just looking at our email settings. Now on the Layout tab, we get another opportunity to turn on our focused inbox, but we can also do things like customize the text size and spacing. So this will actually increase or decrease the font size of the messages that you receive in your inbox. We can also determine the message height, so how many rows should each message use. And that really relates to how many lines of the message you can actually see when you're simply looking at your email list in your inbox. We can choose if we want to group by conversation, and we can also determine if we want to see the sender's image if they have one set. And again, we can choose if we want our reading pane to display on the right, at the bottom, or if we want it hidden altogether. Now, if we jump across to compose and reply, as we know, this is where we can add and edit our email signatures. And we can also choose things like our default message format. So I would highly recommend that you compose all of your messages in HTML format. We do have plain text in there as well. But HTML pretty much guarantees that if you have any images or attachments, that those will display correctly. If you want the BCC line to appear by default, then make sure you toggle this checkbox on. And if you like to know which account you're sending from, this is useful if you have multiple accounts, then you can always show the from field as well. We can set our default response type. So maybe we want the default response to be reply all as opposed to reply. We can set that just here. And a really useful little option is the undo send. So this allows us to cancel an email message after we've clicked on the send button. How many times have you clicked on send and then realized that maybe you haven't sent an attachment, or maybe you've made an error, or you've sent it to the wrong person? This kind of gives us a bit of a breather. We can drag this slider up to, let's say, 10 seconds, and that is the maximum. And that gives us a 10-second window to click the undo button at the bottom of the screen and recall the message that we've just sent. And at the bottom here, we have suggested replies. So as we saw, when we're creating an email message or when we're responding to somebody, Outlook has a bit of AI working in the background, which shows us some suggested replies. If you like that, keep that toggled on. If you don't, this is where you come to deselect that box. The next section is attachments. And this option is really useful to have toggled on because this is going to warn you if you send a message that might be missing an attachment. So if you refer to an attachment in the body of your email, but Outlook recognizes that there isn't anything attached, it's going to pop up and remind you. And another cool thing we can do here is we can add additional storage accounts. So currently I have my primary account, which is my OneDrive cloud storage. But if I store files in other applications, such as Dropbox, I could choose to add my Dropbox account to here as well to make it really easy to access my files that I have stored in Dropbox. The Rules tab, we've already been in here. This is where we come to create our rules. We've already spoken about sweep, so let's move across to junk email. Now this is where you can come to manage things like your blocked senders and domains. So if you find that you're always getting junk email from a specific email address, this is where you can come to add that email to your blocked senders list. If you find that valid emails from specific email addresses are being moved to your junk mail, you could add those to your safe senders list to ensure that they come to your inbox. And then underneath here we have some additional filters. The next thing that we can customize are quick steps. Now, quick steps are essentially very similar to rules, except they're not applied to the inbox as a whole. They're applied individually to emails. So if I was to create a new quick step, and I'm just going to call this mails from, let's say, Grady, I can then choose an action much like I would a rule. So maybe I want to delete all mails that come from Grady. Of course, I'm not going to do that. But maybe I want to flag any messages that come from Grady. And I'm going to choose the today flag. And I could even choose a shortcut for this quick step. So what this means is if we just very quickly click on save, if I have an email from Grady, like I do here, I can select it. And then on the home ribbon, underneath quick steps, you can see there is my quick step, mails from Grady. If I click this, it's going to execute that action, which is to flag the email. So quick steps are applied to individual emails, rules are applied to the entire mailbox. We can also customize what we call our quick actions. If you've noticed, when you hover over an email in your email list, you get a few little icons. You can see here flag, email, and pin. Now notice underneath, these are currently the ones that I have displaying when I hover over an email. But I could modify these, I could choose to. Now it's worth noting that you can only have 4 actions. If I try and select something else, it's not going to let me. But I could replace flag with move to folder instead. And we can also do a similar thing when we open up a message. You can see in the preview below, currently, when I open a message, the icons that I see are reply, reply all, and forward. But I could, if I wanted to, add delete. It adds that little icon. I could add block, and I could add, let's say, print, for example. So really set this up so that it suits how you like to work. Now the sync email section, this is useful if you need to set up your email account elsewhere because it's going to show you all of your POP and IMAP settings. So just be aware that that's there. You're probably not going to have to use it too often. If we jump into message handling, this is where we can customize things like our message options. So for example, if I want to empty my deleted items folder every time I sign out of Microsoft 365, I could choose this option. I can specify how I like to mark items in my inbox as read. This is also where we can request read receipts from people, and we also have some translation options down here as well. The next one is forwarding. So if you need to forward emails onto a different account or onto somebody else, you can simply enable forwarding and type in the email address to forward to. Automatic replies, we've seen what this is. This is our out of office. And then things like retention policies and S-MIME, you're not really going to need to go into. So I wouldn't worry too much about those. The final one is groups. and this is related to Microsoft 365 groups. Now, we haven't spoken about those as yet. We are going to do that a bit later on in the course, so for the time being, I'm just going to close down this window. So those are the main settings that you can change. The final thing, which is a little bit more fun, if we click on the settings icon again, we can change our theme and mode. So if we click on this, it's going to take us into appearance. And as I said, we could change our theme to dark. That's quite nice. We could also enable modern themes. So these allow you to add a background image for further customization. So you can choose those if you like. And then we have some classic themes that we can apply below. Now for this course, I'm going to keep this on light. But another area that you might possibly want to take a look at in here is the notifications area. So this is where we can customize how we're notified for new messages, reminders, and when somebody reacts to our messages. So definitely go in here and check that out. We can also enable desktop notifications, which is going to show us a little pop-up card in the corner. And the final thing to really point out in here is this categories section. This is where we're going to find all of our categories. So it's another place we can go to edit our current categories and also create new categories as well. So definitely have a little browse through some of those advanced settings and set up your Outlook so that it works best for you. So now we have a pretty good idea as to how email works. It's time now to switch our focus and start to explore the calendar in Outlook online. So let's head on over to the left-hand menu and notice that the second icon down is calendar. So we can simply click on this to switch across. Now in this first lesson, we're just going to familiarize ourselves with the layout and the different views that we can use to look at items in our calendar. Again, we have some ribbons running across the top. We have a home ribbon, we have a view ribbon, and also a help ribbon. And underneath these ribbons, we have a little mini calendar view. And we can use our up and down arrows to scroll to the different months. Now, if you decide that you don't particularly like having this mini calendar just here, you can collapse it up by clicking on the little drop down arrow just here to give yourself a little bit more room. Now, personally, I like to have this mini calendar displayed. Now, underneath our mini calendar, this is where we can go to toggle on other calendars that we have access to or add additional calendars. So by default, notice that underneath my calendars, we have calendar selected. So it's showing the calendar that's associated with my Microsoft 365 account. And you can see I have a few different appointments and meetings in my calendar. Now, just below that, notice that I also have access to group calendars. So if I click on Show All, this is going to show all of the calendars that I could possibly load into the main window. You can see I have a calendar for United Kingdom holiday. So if I turn this on, it's just going to show in the calendar. So this can actually be pretty useful. Now, what we'll also see down here are any groups that we're a part of. So we haven't spoken a great deal about Microsoft 365 groups as yet, so I'm not going to linger too long on these, but these are additional group calendars that I could toggle on. So if I click in Project Alpha, you can see that the appointments that show in green, those ones are associated with that particular group shared calendar. And if you do have multiple calendars selected, they're going to show by default in this overlay mode. If you're used to using the desktop version of your Outlook calendar, you might be more familiar with multiple calendars showing side by side. The behavior is different in Outlook Online. It will overlay them. And personally, I much prefer having everything merged into one calendar. Now, over on the right-hand side, we have a pane that's going to show us any meetings that are occurring on that particular day. You can see that today I had a project meeting. And then finally, running across the top on the home ribbon, this is where we can define how we're viewing our calendar. So notice that currently I'm viewing my calendar in month view. But notice that we can switch to week view, which is going to show Monday to Sunday. I could choose work week, which is basically the same except it excludes the weekends, or I could go for day view and view appointments for individual days. Also notice that day view has a little drop down just here, so we can choose to view 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, so on and so forth. Now we do have another view, and that is board view, but we are going to talk about that in a later lesson, so I'm going to skip over that for the time being. I'm going to keep mine on month view. Other things that we have on this home ribbon, we have a filter option just here. So this is going to allow us to filter items within our calendar. So currently I'm showing all items, but if I only wanted to see appointments, for example, I could filter like so. And it's basically going to remove everything else from my calendar apart from appointments. Let's put that back to all. Now we have a share button up here as well, which is going to enable us to share our calendar with other people. And we can also print a copy of our calendar. Now, if we quickly switch to day view and scroll all the way up to the top, it's sometimes good, particularly if this is a new Microsoft 365 account, to make sure that you define what you consider to be a working day. Because a working day, the hours aren't the same for everybody. Some people might start at 7 and finish at 3:30. Other people might start at 8 or 9 or 10. Or you could have a completely different calendar if you work night shifts. Now you can define your working hours from within your calendar in Outlook Online. So if we jump up to the cog icon, this is going to take us into our settings. We need to click on View, All Outlook Settings. And notice it's taking us straight to the calendar category, and we can go through and we can modify some of our settings. So I'm going to change a few things in here. It says show first day of the week as Monday. Now I personally like to have Monday as the first day of the week, but you can change this. I know a lot of people like to display Sunday as the first day. I can choose to show week numbers. I'm going to turn that on because that can be quite helpful. And I can also choose the appearance of different events that I add into my calendar. So I can go for a light appearance or a bold appearance. So let's switch it to bold just to see what that looks like. I would always recommend that you make sure that your calendar time zone is set correctly. And if you work across multiple time zones or you work with people in a different office, you can also add another time zone here. So let's add in, let's go for New York. And I can give this a label. I'm going to call it NYC, and let's call this one LON for London. And I'm going to click on Save to save those changes. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these. I would definitely recommend you do have a little look through these settings and customize accordingly. Now, one thing I am going to do is I am going to show the weather on my calendar. I'm going to show it in Celsius, and let's display the weather for London and click on Add. Now notice you can add up to 5 different locations into your calendar. Now the final thing I'm going to highlight to you in here are work hours and location. So let's make sure we save our changes, because this is what I was talking about earlier. This is where you can define your working days and also your working hours. So if you only work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you could deselect both of these days and then define your times. And if you need to modify these, just click the drop down and select the correct working times. Notice in the last column, we also have the opportunity to specify if we're working from the office or if we're working remotely. Now, I work remotely every day, so let's change all of these to remote and click on Save. Now check out these changes. I changed my meeting event colors to bold, so this looks a lot more bold than it did before. And you can also see that I have my different time zones showing at the side here. If we switch back to month view, notice that we can also see the weather for the next few days. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of the Outlook Online calendar interface. In the next couple of lessons, we're going to start to explore some of the functionality. So now we're a little bit more familiar with the calendar interface. Let's start to take a look at how we can add in appointments and meetings. And it's very important to differentiate between these two. An appointment in general is something that is just for you. So that might be a doctor's appointment. Maybe you've scheduled some quiet time. Or maybe you're attending a training course. Whereas meetings are appointments that have invitees. And of course, within Outlook, we can schedule in-person meetings and also online meetings using Teams. So let's take a look at the difference between the two. Now, if we want to add a new appointment, let's deal with those first of all. We can go up to the Home tab and you can see we have a new event button. Now, it doesn't matter if you're scheduling an appointment or a meeting, you're going to get taken to this same window. The thing that differentiates the two is whether this field just here has invitee names in it or not. So when we're scheduling an appointment, something that's just for us, we're going to leave this field blank. Another really important thing to make sure of is that you're scheduling in the correct calendar. If you recall, I'm displaying two calendars merged together. I have my calendar and also the shared calendar for Project Alpha. So I don't want to accidentally schedule my doctor's appointment in the Project Alpha team calendar. So we need to make sure at the top here that we have the correct calendar selected. I want to choose my calendar. Let's add a title. I'm going to go for Doctor's Appointment. Now notice to the left, we can choose to associate a little icon with the subject. So let's choose this little medical case just there. We then get to specify the date and time. So let's say this is next Tuesday and my doctor's appointment is at 2 o'clock. And we'll say that that is going to be for an hour and a half. Now, if this was something that repeated, I could choose to set this to recurring and choose how often the recurrence occurs. Now, I'm not going to be going to the doctor's daily, weekly or monthly, at least I hope not. But if you are scheduling something that needs to repeat, make sure you set the correct recurrence. All we really need to do then is add a description. Now, because this is a doctor's appointment, I don't really want to add in all of the details of it. Maybe I'll just type in the address. Now, notice over on the right-hand side, I get a little preview of the time that's going to be blocked out in my calendar. And if we take a look at the event tab at the top, I can choose to categorize this. So what I'm going to do here is, it doesn't really fit in any of these categories. I'm going to create a new category on the fly and we'll call this personal and we'll make that a pinky color. And let's assign the personal category. I can even mark this as a private appointment. So what that means is that anybody who has access to my calendar is not going to be able to see the details of this appointment. They're going to be able to see that my time is blocked out, that I'm busy, but they don't know that it's a doctor's appointment. So I would recommend that you turn that on for anything that's particularly personal. Now that's pretty much all I need in here. So I'm simply going to click on Save to add that into my calendar. If I need to edit this for whatever reason, I can simply click on the appointment and click on the edit button and make my changes. So that is how we can add an appointment. Let's now add a meeting into our calendar for the 21st of June. So once again, we're going to click the new event button and we'll say this is the weekly team meeting. Again, we can choose an icon. I'm actually pretty happy with the icon that's been selected. And we want to make sure that we're saving in the correct calendar. I'm going to put this in my calendar and let's define our date and start time. So this time we're going to go for, I think I said the 22nd, and this meeting is going to be at 10:30 and it's going to run to 11:30. Now, currently, notice that the button still says save at the top here because this is still an appointment. In order to turn this into a meeting, we need to add some invitees. So I'm going to invite Adele. I'm going to invite Alex. I'm going to invite Diego. And who else shall we invite? Let's invite Miriam as well. Now, notice a little bit of AI in action here. As I started adding these people, it was checking their calendars for their availability. So underneath, it's suggesting some perfect times for this particular meeting. Now, it's suggesting 4 to 5 o'clock on Thursday, Friday, or Monday. But if I take a look in my calendar view over here, I can see that the time that I've scheduled, 10:30 to 11:30, everyone is available. And if you do want to check that, we have a scheduling assistant at the top here, where it's going to show us all of the attendees, and if there was any conflicts, we would see them in here and we can move our meeting around accordingly. So a few tools in here to help you when it comes to scheduling. Now I'm going to categorize this as well, and I'm going to create another new category. Let's call this team meetings, and these are going to be green. So let's assign that category. And notice that as soon as I started to add invitees, the default behavior is to automatically make this a Teams meeting. As soon as I started to type in those names, this little toggle slider toggled itself on. So what this means is that when I send this off to these different people, the body or the description of the invite is going to contain the Teams meeting link. And people can just click on that link to join that meeting when it starts. Notice that instead of a save button, we now have a send button. Let's click on send to send that off. And there we go. I can see this scheduled in my calendar. If I click on it and click edit, let's take a look at the body. You can see here, there is all the information for this Teams meeting, which makes it super easy for anybody to join. Also notice that because I am the organizer of this meeting, if I go back into the meeting, I have a little tracking area that I can use. And this is going to help me determine if my attendees are going to be coming to this meeting or if they're not. Now, obviously, I've just sent this. Most of them haven't had chance to even see the email as yet, so I have 4 people not responding. So I have didn't respond 4 people. But as soon as these people start to accept or decline, I can see that here in the tracking information, which is super useful. Now, another thing that you'll notice is if you open up the calendar in Microsoft Teams, and I have mine open just here, notice that those appointments that we've added, both the doctor's appointment and the weekly team meeting, both feed through to my Teams calendar as well. So everything is truly integrated. So that is how we can add appointments and meetings into our Outlook online calendar. Depending on the type of job that we do, we might find that we need to share our calendar with somebody else. This is quite often the situation with a PA and a manager. Very often, the PA will be organizing the manager's calendar, appointments and meetings, and needs to have access to that calendar. Now, assigning access to other people is a fairly straightforward process. If we take a look over in this left-hand pane where we have all of our calendars listed out, if I wanted to give Adele access to my personal calendar, all I would need to do is click on the 3 dots to open up the More Options contextual menu, and notice we have sharing and permissions. So if I click on this, all I need to do is add in the person or people who I want to have access to my calendar. So I'm going to choose Adele, and I then get to specify what level of access she has to my calendar. So we have a few different options in here. I could set it so that Adele can only view when I'm busy. So that means that Adele won't be able to see the actual subject, the details of the calendar appointment. She'll just know that I'm busy during certain times. I might want to allow Adele to view the titles and the locations, but not actually anything that exists in the body of the appointment or meeting. I can allow her to view all details so she can see everything, or I can give her edit access. So edit access allows Adele to do everything above so she can view all of the details, and she can also edit and make changes to meetings and appointments. And the highest level of access is delegate access. If you give someone delegate access to your calendar, they can pretty much do everything as if they were the owner of that calendar. Now, I'm going to give Adele can edit privileges. I also get the opportunity to determine how everybody else can view my calendar, so everybody else within my organization. So I could say that my calendar isn't shared at all, or I can give them higher levels of access. Now, I'm going to leave this on the default. People can view my calendar, but they can only see when I'm busy. Only Adele and myself are the ones that can see the details. Let's click on Share. Now, what's going to happen there is that Adele is now going to receive an email letting her know that I've shared my calendar with her. And she will need to go through the process of opening that calendar within her Outlook online. Now, Adele has also shared her calendar with me. So let me show you the process you go through when you want to open somebody else's calendar after they've given you permissions. So if we switch back across to our email, what I should find is that I get an email from Adele letting me know that she's given me access to her calendar. Now remember, in a previous lesson, I set up a rule that moves all emails from Adele to the Mails from Adele folder. So if we click on this folder, there it is at the top. You can see here it says, I'd like to share my calendar with you. So we need to accept this and it will go away and it will add the calendar. Check out what we have. We have a new category called People's Calendars, and there we have Adele Vance. And if I select it, it's going to show her meetings merged with my meetings as well. Now, if for some reason you don't actually receive that email, you can still add the calendar. So if I know that Adele has given me access to her calendar, I just haven't got that email, I can go to Add Calendar, Add from Directory. I can choose my account, that's the one I want to add it to. Then I can search for Adele and click on Add. And that will do exactly the same thing. So pretty straightforward to share your calendar and also open other people's calendars. The final point to cover here is if we go back into this Add Calendar section, this is where we can come to add all different types of calendar. For example, we can add our own personal calendars. So maybe you have other email accounts that contain calendars that you use. You can go through and you can add them through this link. We can create a brand new blank calendar from scratch if we want to. We can add other people's calendars from the directory. We can even do things like search for public holiday calendars. So depending on what country you're in, you can simply find your country, select it, and it will add all of that country's public holidays to your calendar. And if you're a big lover of sports, we can also add things like sports calendars as well. So definitely have a little look through there and make sure that you have access to all of the calendars that are of interest to you. In this lesson, we're going to briefly discuss how we can export our Outlook data to a PST file. Now, why might you want to do this? Well, there are a couple of different reasons. Exporting data from Outlook to a PST is a great way of keeping your data safe. It can be utilized as a backup for all of your emails, calendar items, and contact information. Alternatively, you might find yourself in the position of having to export your data out to a PST if you're maybe moving companies and you want to take your Outlook data with you. We can export everything that you see in your Outlook data file, and the process of doing this is fairly straightforward. Now, the first thing to note here is that you do need to do this from the desktop version of Outlook. So I've quickly opened that up and we'll find our export options underneath the File tab at the top. Notice in the left-hand menu, we have an option for Open and Export, and we have a few different things that we can select in here. Now, we're going to go for the Import and Export option in a moment, but just take a moment to take a look at some of these other options that can be really useful. We can open a calendar from here. We can open a different Outlook data file, or we can open other user folders. So let's click on Import and Export. Now what this is going to do is it's going to open up a wizard style dialog box. And you can see we have quite a few options in here. Just the top two are related to exporting information. The others you can see in here are all related to importing information into your Outlook account. So let's say that we want to export all of the mails in our inbox or maybe in a specific folder. This is where we would choose the Export to a File option. And if you take a look underneath, we get a little bit of a description so we know exactly what we're doing. It says Export Outlook information to a file for use in other programs. So that pretty much sounds like what we want. Let's click on Next to work our way through the wizard. Now we can export out to two different types of files. So we can export our information out into a comma separated value file. So this looks a lot like an Excel file. We'll have all of the data separated by commas usually, and then we can tidy that data up and have it stored in Excel. Now the alternative way of exporting is to export to an Outlook data file or a .pst file as they're known in Outlook. And this is by far the most common way of exporting data. So let's choose this option. We're going to click on Next. And this is where we can now go in and we can choose what information we want to export. So you can see here, if I just collapse this up, if you have multiple email accounts attached to your Outlook like I do, and I've got the last two blurred out because they are my personal email accounts, but I do have 3 accounts attached. So the point I'm trying to illustrate here is that you can export data from any account that you currently have attached to your Outlook. So let's expand this one just here, and notice that aside from the email folders, so we have inbox, drafts, sent items, so on and so forth, we also have things like calendar and contacts. So you can really export the whole lot out to a PST. Now what you could do here is if you wanted to export everything, you could click on the top level up here, the mailbox. You could say include subfolders and click on next, and that will export absolutely everything. So all of your emails, all of your contacts, and all of your calendar items. If you don't want to export everything and you want to be a bit more specific, you can drill down into any of these folders. For example, let's expand the inbox. You can see here are my subfolders, and for the purpose of this demonstration, because I don't want to export everything out to a huge file, I'm just going to choose to export the marketing folder. And this marketing folder does have a subfolder. That folder is called newsletters, so I'm going to say yes, include subfolders. So let's click on next. We then get to choose where we want to store the exported file. So by default, mine is going to go into my OneDrive, into my documents folder, and it's going to be called backup.pst. Now, of course, if you want to rename this, you can do that at this stage. And if you want to save it somewhere else, just click on the Browse button. We then get some options. We can replace duplicates with items exported. We can allow duplicate items to be created, or do not export duplicate items. So I'm just going to say replace duplicates with items exported. Let's click on Finish. And depending on how much information you have stored in your Outlook account, this can take a while, so you might need to be a little bit patient. And the export should now be done. So let's jump into OneDrive and take a look at the Documents folder and see if the backup file is there. And yes, there it is. And you can see if we take a look at the type, it says Outlook data file. So now that I have that data stored off as a backup, if I was to maybe open up a new Outlook account or maybe move to a different company, I could safely take this file with me and then import that into my new copy of Outlook. And the process of importing is pretty much the same. We go up to File, Open and Export, and then we click the Import Export button. But this time we want to import from another program or file. And if you take a look just below, it says import data from other files such as Outlook data files, PST files. So then when we click on next, we want to import the PST, and then we can find the file, it's in exactly the same place, and work through the wizard to import that data back in. Now, I'm not going to go all the way through to the end of this wizard because I don't want it to overwrite what I already have. But once you've done that, you'll safely have all of your data back in your Outlook account. And as I mentioned, it is a great way of backing up your Outlook data. A really great way of being able to quickly jot down notes without interrupting your workflow is to utilize Notes within Microsoft 365. Now, Notes does look a little bit different depending on whether you're using the online version of Outlook or if you're using the desktop version. So let's explore both of these. So I'm in Outlook Online. I'm currently just clicked on my inbox, but if you cast your eyes all the way to the top right-hand corner of the screen, notice that we have a few items, or few icons, I should say, running across the top in this horizontal menu bar. You can see here that one of these, if I hover my mouse over, the screen tip says OneNote Feed. Now, if you're not aware of what OneNote is another Microsoft 365 application. And what it basically is a note-taking application. If you click on your app launcher, you'll be able to see it sitting in here. Now, this isn't a OneNote course. OneNote is outside of the scope of this course. We will sort of touch on it here and there, but the OneNote application serves as a digital notebook. We can create notebooks, and within that, we can create sections and pages, and we can add notes and do lots of really cool things with those notes. And of course, it is integrated with other applications such as Outlook. So if we click on OneNote Feed, this is where we can quickly take notes and have access to those notes when we're working in our email. So notice here at the top, we have Add a Note. If I click on this, it's going to open up a brand new sticky note. And this kind of looks a little bit like sticking Post-it notes on your screen. So in here, we have some space to type whatever our note is about. So maybe there is some kind of access code for the front door of our office that I can never remember. I can simply add a note and type it into here. Notice right at the bottom we have minimal options when it comes to formatting, but we do have some options. So I could select text, much like I would if I was working in a Word document. I could click on B to make it bold. I could make it italic. I could underline it. I could strike through. I can even add things like bulleted lists into here as well. So if we click this, I can then type whatever it is I need to type to make it look a little bit more structured. I can even add images into my notes if I want to. So if we click on Insert Image, let's just select the first image that we find. This is just an example. There you go. We can add that into our notes. Also notice just above we have 3 dots in the corner of our note. So if we click these, we can choose to change the color of the post-it note, the sticky note. So let's change it to yellow. I could copy the note to the clipboard, which is going to allow me to paste it elsewhere, or I could completely delete the note. So we have a few options. Let's click on the back button. You can now see when we go back in our feed, we can see that note sitting just there. And we can carry on adding notes as required. So jotting down things in this way by utilizing the OneNote feed is a great way of just not interrupting your workflow when you're working in your calendar or your inbox. Also notice right at the top we have a search notes area. So if we're looking for something specific, we can type in a keyword and it will search through the notes and find what you're looking for. So that is one way to work with notes when you're working in Outlook online. Let's jump across to the desktop version of Outlook because we have a slightly different way of utilizing notes. Now, when we're working in the desktop version of Outlook, if you take a look all the way over on the left-hand side where we have our different icons to switch us between our mail and our calendar, so on and so forth, notice at the bottom it says More Apps. Now, in here we have a folder called Notes. So if we click on this, it's going to jump us across to the Notes section of Outlook Desktop. Now in here you're going to see all of the email accounts that you have attached to your Outlook. So once again I have 3 different accounts. The one I'm using is this middle one in here. Now notice what we have. We have a little sticky note that says code for front door. And if you recall, that is exactly the note that I created when I was working in the online version. If we double click to open up this sticky note, you can see there it is. It's pretty huge. We can resize this down, but that is pretty much the information that I typed in when we were working in Outlook Online. So we have code for front door at the top, we have those bullet points, and then I just typed in some junk information. So everything again synchronizes and filters through. Now, if you do prefer to work in the desktop version as opposed to the online version, you can also create notes from here. Notice on the home ribbon we have a new note button. We can open this up and we can start to type our notes. Again, I can't think of anything particularly interesting to type into here, so I'm just going to type some junk. When we close the note down, it's going to save and we can simply double click to reopen it. So if we right click and go to Categorize, maybe I want to categorize this note as being related to Project Alpha. I can select the Project Alpha category and that is also going to change the color of the note. Now just above where it says current view, we can choose to display these as icons as we have them now, or we can display them in different ways, such as a notes list. So if we click Notes List, we just get a different way of viewing those notes. And once again, this is entirely personal preference, how you like to organize and display your notes. So pretty straightforward. That is all there is to it. All you need to remember is that everything synchronizes. So I'm actually going to give this a bit of a nicer name. Let's just call this My Note and click away. And if we go back to Outlook Online, we should find that this note has now synchronized across. So let's open up the OneNote feed again, and there we have the synchronized note. Another important part of Outlook Online is being able to manage our contacts successfully. And contacts in the context of Outlook are referred to as people. So if you cast your eyes over to the left-hand side where we have our vertical menu, notice that the third icon down just here is labeled People. If we click on it, that's going to jump us into our contacts. Now, when we jump into our contacts, you can see that we have numerous different folders. The first one and the most prominent one, the one that I have selected here, is your contacts. Now, currently, I don't have any contacts in my list. We can also do things like create contact lists, which I'm going to delve into a bit more in the next lesson. Now, aside from having a list of your contacts, we also have access to various different directories. For example, if I click on default global address list, this is going to show all of the people who are basically attached to my tenant, who are within my company. So here I can see some familiar faces. I can see Adele, I can see Alex, I can see Diego, Grady, Henrietta, all of those types of people. So these are people that are within my company, so they're part of the global company address list, but I don't necessarily have them as my contacts. Now, of course, you can change that. We can select any of these people. For example, Adele, let's select her. Right click, and I can say add to contacts. So as soon as I add Adele, it's going to pop open a little contact profile pane. So this is where I can see Adele's information, and if I want to add anything more to it, for example, maybe she has more than one email address, I could add a secondary email in here, or maybe I could add a secondary phone number, something along those lines. Once I'm happy, if I just click on save at the bottom, it's going to save that contact information. But now if we jump to your contacts, you can see there is Adele. So just be aware that you can add anybody from your global address list into your personal contacts in order to make it easier to access them. It's also worth noting that if you take a look at the home ribbon, we have an add to contacts button up here as well. And if that person is somebody that you communicate with frequently, you might even want to add them into your favorites folder. So once again, with Adele selected, I'm going to click add to favorites on the home ribbon, and that's just going to put a little star next to her name, and I can now access that contact card from my favorites folder. So how you organize these folders is entirely up to you, but just know that all of your company contacts are going to be under the default global address list. Now, as we just saw, for every contact that we have in this list, we get to see quite a bit of information. So let's use Adele as our example again. We can see the position that she holds. She's a retail manager. I have options to call her using Teams. I can send her an email directly from her contact card. I can start a conversation or a chat with Adele. Again, that's going to be in Teams. Or I can click the three dots and I can choose to categorize her. Now, I don't currently have any categories created, but I could select new category and I could set up, let's say, a retail category. Let's just give it the color of red and click on save. Now, if you check out my folder list, you can see that underneath the categories folder, I have retail. And if I click on retail, there is Adele. Now, it's worth noting that if you come back to your global address list and go to the next one down, Alex, notice I don't get the three dots there to assign him to a category. And it's because I don't have him as one of my contacts. So I'm going to add Alex into my contacts. Let's just click on save. And now that he's in my contacts, I can then click on the three dots and I can choose to categorize him. So let's create a new category for him. This is going to be marketing contacts, and we're going to give that an orange color. So categories are an easy way of grouping your contacts together. Now, just take a moment to look at some of the information that you have on each and every contact card, because there is quite a bit of it. Notice at the top we have some tabs, overview, so we can see the local time, preferred meeting hours, the email address, office location, things like that. We have the contact information, so we can see email address. Again, we can see phone numbers. We can see some information about the organization that person works for. We can see any files that they've shared. We can see any emails that have been sent between myself and Alex. And we can also have a LinkedIn tab here as well. So if we want to add them through LinkedIn, this is a quick way of doing it. We just need to make sure that we select the correct profile. Now, if we go back to Adele and take a look at the email tab, you can see that I do have some information in here because I have invited Adele to share my calendar. So that's effectively an email, and that email is logged underneath the email tab. So lots of information that we can see about our contacts. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour as to how you can access your contacts, how you can see your contacts in different distribution lists, how you can categorize your contacts and add them to your own personal contacts. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how you can create your own contact cards. In the previous lesson, we started exploring contacts or people in Outlook Online. So in this lesson, we're going to take a look at how we can add new contacts into our address book and how we can utilize that contact information. So notice that currently I'm clicked on the Your Contacts folder. So to add a new contact, it is a simple case of going up to where we have New Contact. Notice there is a keyboard shortcut of Shift+N. Now, if we click the drop-down arrow next to New Contact, we have a choice of different things that we can add. We can add new contacts, we can add a new contact list, or we can add a new group. So let's start out simply by adding a brand new contact. This is going to open up an empty contact card and we can simply add in the details. So I've just added some test details for Harry Potter. Also note that at the bottom I've added a category called Wizardry and I've added his contact card to that category. So once we're happy, we can click on Save. It's going to save that contact card and there it is in my contacts list. So super simple to add in new contacts. Now, one advantage of having people stored in your contacts is it makes them a lot easier to email. For example, if we're already working with our contacts and maybe I decide that I want to email Harry, I can simply click on his contact card and I have an email link just here. If I click on the email icon, it's going to open up a brand new email address to Harry. I can add a subject and then I can type my message and then click on send. Now, another thing that happens when we add somebody into our contacts is if we're working with our email and we create a brand new email, if I want to address this to Harry, because he's in my contacts, as soon as I start to type his name, it's going to pull that contact card up and I can then just simply select it. So I don't have to type in his full email address each time because he's recognized in my contacts list. And of course, if we need to edit or change any information on any contact card record, we have an Edit Contact button at the bottom. We can simply click it, go in, make our changes, and then make sure we click Save at the bottom. So contacts are really easy to add and manage. Now, if we go back to clicking the drop-down arrow, notice we have something called New Contact List. So this is where we can effectively group together people in contact lists. So maybe I want to group together everybody in the marketing team. I could call this marketing list, and then I can go in and add in the email addresses. So let's say Grady, let's say Alex, and let's say that Henrietta also works in marketing. I can give my group a description. I don't have to. I can simply click on Create to create this contact list. Now, as soon as I create a contact list, it's going to add it into the contact lists folder. This one just here, Your Contact Lists. I can see marketing list, and if I want to send an email to all three of these people, I have a send email link just here. It's going to open up a brand new email, and then anything I type in here will be sent to everybody in the marketing list. And if you want to see who is part of a particular contact group, you can click on the plus. It will expand out and you can see the individual email addresses. I can even utilize the marketing list name in order to compose an email. For example, if we go back to our inbox and we click New Email, if I start to type in marketing list, it's going to bring it up. I can select it, and that's an alternative way of sending to that group. Now, the final thing that we have in this dropdown is to create a brand new group. So this is exactly the same as creating a Microsoft 365 group that we saw earlier. Remember, Microsoft 365 groups feed through to lots of different applications. Now, we're not going to walk through this process. We have done it a few times, but just know that that's what that option does. And we can see our Microsoft 365 groups in our folder list by expanding groups just here. And we can see any Microsoft 365 groups that we have set up by clicking on the All Groups folder just here, and there are all of our groups. And of course, we can send emails directly from here as well. The final thing to mention here is if you want to export your contacts or import other contacts into Outlook. Notice on the home ribbon just here, we have a Manage Contacts button where we have our import and export options. So if I wanted to export my contacts, I can click on this little button. I can choose to export all of my contacts and then just simply click on Export. And what it does is it creates a CSV file. You can see at the top here it says contacts.csv. When I click on Open, it's going to open in Excel. And you can see here exactly what it does. Because I exported from my contacts list and I only have 3 people in there, it's exported all of the information out into an Excel spreadsheet. And this can be really, really useful. So just be aware of all the different options that you have when it comes to adding and managing people or contacts in Outlook. It's time now for us to practice some of the skills that we've learned in this section of the course. And this section was all about Outlook. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to create 3 folders in Outlook and name them Project A, Project B, and Project C. Next, I'd like you to flag at least 4 mails for follow-up, and I don't mind which flag you use. I'd then like you to create a rule that moves all flagged email, regardless of the flag, to the Project A folder. Next, I'd like you to set up an email signature and set it for new messages only. Then I'd like you to create categories for Project A, Project B, and Project C and assign them to some mails in your inbox. Once you've done that, I'd like you to create a search folder that searches for all unread mails. And then finally, I'd like you to create a team meeting for next Wednesday in your calendar from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. And you can invite people if you want. That part is optional, or you can always invite yourself under a different account. And I'd like you to ensure that this is a Teams meeting. So a few different things to do there. If you'd like to see my answer, then please keep watching. So the first thing I asked you to do here was to create 3 folders for Project A, B, and C. Now I've done that in my inbox. You can see them sitting just here, A, B, and C. And it's a simple case of right-clicking and choosing Create New Subfolder. Next, I asked you to flag at least 4 emails in your inbox. So you can see that I've done that to the top 4 emails just here. Again, that's a simple case of selecting the email, and you can right-click and go to Flag. Mine says Unflag because it's already flagged. Alternatively, you can go to the Tags group just here, and you can choose your flag from the drop-down. Then I asked you to create a rule that moves all flagged messages to the Project A folder. Now we want this rule to apply to our entire inbox, so when we click the Rules drop-down, we want to go to Manage Rules, and then we can add a new rule just here. And there is my rule. Let's edit it, take a look at it. I just called it Project A. The condition is when the message is flagged, and we're choosing any flag here, and the action is to move to the Project A folder. I'm going to say Run Rule now. Let's click on Save. And when we go back to our inbox, we should find that those mails have been moved to the Project A folder, which they have. Next, I ask you to set up an email signature and set it for new messages only. So for this, we need to go up to the cog icon at the top, go to the Compose and Reply section, and this is where we can create a new signature. So when we click on New Signature, we just need to give our signature a name. I'm going to call mine Deb3, and then we can just add the information that we want in our signature. Now I'm just keeping mine super basic here. You could go to town with the formatting underneath. Now important to remember that once you create your signature, you need to click Save. And then when we go down here, we can choose which signature we want to apply for new messages. So I would select Deb3, and then for replies and forwards, I'm going to say no signature and click on Save. Next, I asked you to create categories for Project A, Project B, and Project C and assign them to some mails. So you can see that the top 4 emails here, I've just assigned Project A and Project B to those. If you need to create categories, you can right-click again, go to Categorize and Manage Categories, and this is where you can create your categories. So I have mine in here, Project A, Project B, and Project C. And when it comes to assigning these categories, we can right-click, we can categorize, and I'm going to choose Project C for this mail just here. The next thing I asked you to do was to create a search folder that searches for all unread mails. So let's scroll down to where we have search folders. I'm going to right click, create new search folder, And our new search folder is searching for unread email. Now it's telling me that that folder already exists, so I'm just going to rename it to unread email 2. Click on create. And now we should find that when we click on this, it's just going to show us all of our unread mail. The final thing I asked you to do was to flip across to your calendar and create a new team meeting for next Wednesday, 2 to 3 p.m. and make sure that it's a Teams meeting. So let's click on next Wednesday. We're going to create a new event. We're going to make sure that we're saving into the correct calendar. So I'm going to choose my calendar. This is going to be a team meeting. I'm going to invite the usual suspects. I'm going to go for Adele, Alex. As I said, this part is optional, and we want to set this for 2 to 3 p.m. and we want to make sure that this Teams meeting slider is toggled on, and then we can click on send. If we reopen it up, we can see all of the information in there for a Teams meeting. That is it. That is this exercise. I hope you got an okay with that, and I will see you in the next section. Microsoft OneDrive for Business is a cloud-based storage and file sharing service provided by Microsoft as part of its suite of productivity tools for businesses and organizations. It's designed to facilitate collaboration and enable secure document storage, synchronization, and the sharing of files within a business or organizational environment. Now, OneDrive for Business is distinct from the personal version of OneDrive, which is intended for individual users. While both services offer cloud storage and file sharing capabilities, OneDrive for Business is specifically tailored for enterprise use and includes additional features to meet the needs of organizations. Some of the key features of OneDrive for Business include storage and synchronization. Users can store files and documents in the cloud, accessible from any device with an internet connection. Files can also be synchronized across multiple devices, ensuring the latest version is always available. OneDrive for Business allows users to easily share files and folders with colleagues both within and outside their organization. It supports real-time co-authoring, enabling multiple users to work on the same document simultaneously. Security and compliance. Microsoft prioritizes security in OneDrive for Business, employing robust encryption and other measures to protect data. It also integrates with Microsoft 365 security and compliance features, allowing organizations to enforce policies, manage access controls, and meet regulatory requirements. Integration with Microsoft 365. OneDrive for Business is tightly integrated with other Microsoft 365 applications that we all know and love, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and SharePoint. This integration allows for seamless collaboration and enables users to access files directly within these applications. Version control and recovery. OneDrive for Business automatically tracks versions of files, allowing users to revert to previous versions if required. Deleted files can be easily recovered from the recycle bin, reducing the risk of accidental data loss. OneDrive for Business offers different storage capacities depending on the subscription plan and can be accessed through web browsers, desktop applications, and mobile apps, providing flexibility and accessibility across devices and platforms. OneDrive is Microsoft's offering when it comes to cloud storage. So if you've ever used an application like maybe Google Drive, then OneDrive works in pretty much the same way. Now, if cloud storage is a completely new concept to you, the way to think of it is like this. Historically, we have our files stored in the C drive on our PC, and those are very much local to our own PC. So if I wanted to share, let's say, a Word document, for example, with my colleague down the corridor, the way that we used to do that was to simply attach it to an email and send it off. But that does come with its disadvantages. With cloud storage, we can save up into the cloud, which is effectively very similar to an external drive, and other people have access to that storage, making it really easy to share files. We can also do things like co-author documents, spreadsheets, presentations using OneDrive as well. So multiple people can jump into the same file and we can see the changes that they're making in real time. And the basis for all of that is knowing how to save our files into OneDrive. And that's what we're going to explore in this lesson. Now, in terms of accessing OneDrive, when you install Microsoft 365, Part of the setup process is to set up OneDrive. So it will walk you through the steps you need to take. If you find yourself in a situation where you have downloaded Microsoft 365 but you don't have OneDrive, you can simply click on the Start menu and search for OneDrive, and you should see this thing here at the top of the list, OneDrive app. If you double click to open that up, that will then walk you through the setup process. And with OneDrive, you can have personal accounts and you can also have business accounts as well. For example, I have both because I have a personal email address, but I also have a business email address. And I like to keep my personal documents separate from my business documents. And another important thing worth noting about OneDrive is that we can work with it online through the portal, or we can synchronize it with our local PC and work with our cloud files within File Explorer. I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later on. For the time being, let's start out by taking a look at OneDrive Online. Again, we're starting from the Microsoft 365 Hub. We're going to click on our app launcher and open up OneDrive. So this is what the interface looks like. On the left-hand side, we have our navigation menu. I'm currently clicked on Home, and within Home, we can see the recent files that we've saved or accessed through OneDrive. I have some filter buttons at the top, so if I'm just interested in taking a look at Excel files, I can use that filter, or I can look at all of my files. Notice just above we can create new documents directly from within OneDrive, which is really useful, or we can upload any files or folders that maybe we have on our C drive. So if I have a file that's stored off to my desktop that only I can see and I want to share that with other people, I could upload the file from my desktop. Nice and straightforward. I then have a My Files link, so if I click on that, it's going to show me all of my files that are private to me. And if you take a look at this list, we have a mixture of folders and also documents. In this case, I've got 2 spreadsheets in here. Now, the information that we can see in these file lists is I can see here the date that this file was modified, who it was modified by, the file size, and the sharing status. So you'll see that most of these are private to me, but the last file here, the product list, I've actually shared this with 2 other people, Adele and Grady. We have a shared link just here, so this is going to show you any files that have been shared with you. So I can see here that Adele has shared meeting notes with me, and I can see that through this shared area. I then have an area here for any files that I've marked as a favorite. So if we go back to my files, notice as I hover over this Excel file, I get a little star here. If I click on this, it's going to add it into my favorites. And then finally, we have our recycle bin, and this is where you can find files that you've deleted. So very simple navigation. Now let's go back to My Files again and take a closer look at what we have in here. If we want to move through our folder structure, we can click on, for example, Notebooks, and it's going to take you into that folder. And you can see we have a breadcrumb trail at the top, which helps us easily get back to where we were. I can click on My Files to go back a step. Also notice that with the documents, so let's go for product list. If I click on the actual name, it's going to open up that file in Excel Online. So remember, we have online versions of all of our applications as well. And I can now work on that file and my changes will be automatically saved. And that is another really important feature of OneDrive. You no longer need to remember to save your files because it's automatically saving back to the cloud all the time. Some other things that we have in here, if we hover over any of our files, we get a few other options. We know what the star is, that's the favorite, but we also have a share option just here. And if we click the 3 dots, we have a whole menu with loads of other options as well. For example, I can open this Excel file within the browser like we just did, or if I have the desktop version of Excel installed on my PC, I can choose to open it in that instead. And working with this file in either of these is pretty much identical. Everything saves back to the cloud. I can preview the file. I've got another way to share it. I can copy the link. I can manage access, delete it, move it, all different kinds of things from this menu. You can also see in the top right hand corner we have some options for sorting, so I can sort by type, name, modified. I'm currently just sorting my files in ascending order. We can choose to display in a list, in a compact list, which gives it slightly less room, or we can display as tiles. So this is very much personal preference. Now, another really important button that we have in here, and again, we're going to talk about this in another lesson, is the sync button just here. Because I mentioned that even though we are working in OneDrive online, we can also synchronize our files to our PC to make them a bit easier to access through File Explorer. So we're definitely going to come back to this button a bit later on. Let's just finish up this lesson by discussing this quick access area on the left-hand side. Notice what we have underneath here. We have some of our groups and teams that we've set up. For example, if I click on Project Alpha, you can see there I have 2 folders. If I click on General, I've got 3 documents stored in there. And these are actually files that have been shared within Teams. So Project Alpha is feeding through from Microsoft Teams so I can see those files. And if we want to check that, we can open up Teams. And if we scroll down to the bottom, Project Alpha Team at the bottom, General Channel. If we jump across to the Files section by using the navigation menu at the top, you can see there are the same files. So things we share within Teams will effectively feed through to OneDrive as well. And you can see that this is linked through to Teams because if we now take a look at the buttons that we have running horizontally across the top, you can see one of them there is Go to Channel. So it's going to allow you to jump directly to the channel where these documents were shared. So that's a quick run through of the OneDrive interface when you're working online. If you're new to OneDrive or even the concept of cloud storage, knowing how to work with your files in the portal or on your desktop can seem a little bit confusing at first. So in this lesson, we're going to demystify how it all works and how everything links together. So again, we're starting out from our Microsoft 365 portal. Now, what you'll immediately notice is that if you look at the app launcher on the left-hand side, and let's just click to open that up, you can see that we have our Microsoft Office applications in here. So I'm talking mainly about the applications that we all know and love and use on a regular basis. So things like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. In these applications, we use them heavily to create documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. Now, if I was to open up the Word application from within the portal, the thing that you'll notice immediately is that it does look a little bit different to what you might be used to. And we're just going to create a blank document so you can see what Word Online looks like. And that is the key here. When we access our applications from the online portal, we're actually accessing the online version of Word, the online version of Excel. And these versions are slightly more limited than the full desktop versions that you might be used to working with. Now you can see immediately that whilst we still have this ribbon style structure, it is a bit of a different layout. We have a much more simplified ribbon. Now it is worth noting that you can change this so it looks a little bit more like the desktop version. If you go all the way over to the right hand side, notice this little drop down arrow that says Ribbon Display Options. If we click this, we can choose to use the classic ribbon as opposed to the single line ribbon. So if you prefer something that looks a little bit more familiar, then you can switch to that. Now, even when we're working with the classic ribbon, one thing to note is that this isn't the full version of Word. There are still some things that we can't do in the online version that we can do in the full version. And one that springs to mind is Mail Merge. Notice that we don't have a Mailings tab at the top here. So the idea of these online applications that you can access from really wherever you have an internet connection is that we can do most of the things that we're going to need to do when we're on the go. For example, if I'm on a train and I want to work on a document, I can simply open it up from the Office Online portal and I can start to make my amendments. So we have anywhere, anytime access to all of our files. If I was doing something a little bit more hardcore, that involved more advanced Word features, I'd probably leave that until I was back at my desk and I had access to the full version. Now, the other thing to note here is that you don't just get the online versions of the applications with your Microsoft 365 subscription. If you do want to download the full versions onto your desktop, if you go to your portal homepage, notice you have an Install Apps button over on the right-hand side. This is going to allow you to install the full versions of all of the apps, and you can then pin them down the bottom to your taskbar and work with them in the normal way. So how does everything link together? We've got the online portal versions, we have the desktop versions. How do we save and get everything to synchronize? Well, that is where OneDrive comes in. So if we go back to the Word document, this blank document that we just created, a couple of things to note here. Check out the title of the document. It currently says Document 6. So this is a really generic document name that all blank documents will have. If we want to rename this to something more meaningful, we don't need to go to File and Save As. We can simply click where it says Document 6 and type in a new name. And I'm just going to call this Deb's document. And you can see underneath the location where this file is going to be stored. And this location is OneDrive. If I wanted to save it to a different folder other than OneDrive Documents, I could go to File, Save As, and I can save it as something completely different and choose a completely different folder. So once you have your file saved into OneDrive, it will then synchronize. So I'm just going to type some junk text into this document. Let's just type in equals, and I'm going to do my little rand trick here. This will just give me a few paragraphs of dummy text. I have my text in here. Now, in order to get this to save, I don't need to do anything. That's right, no more pressing Control S, no more going to File, Save. Everything saves automatically back to the cloud. And you can see the little cloud icon in the title bar here next to Deb's document. So I can simply close this document back down again, safe in the knowledge that all of my changes have been saved. And if I scroll down to the home page, I should see that that document is now at the top. I can just simply click it again to reopen it in Word Online. Now, what does that look like in the full version of Word? Well, let's open up the desktop version and take a look. So I'm going to go down to my taskbar and I'm just going to open up Word. And what you'll see, again, if we scroll down to recent, there is the document that we just created in the online version. If I open it in the full version of Word, it's going to have all of my changes in there. So I could create this document when I'm on my phone on the train, and then when I get back to my desk, I can simply open it in the full version and carry on working in it. So the whole process is really seamless. Now I'm going to apply some formatting. Let's go bold. Let's change the text to red. Again, I can see that it's saving at the top. It now says saved. So I can simply close this down. And once again, if I was now on the train coming home from work and I wanted to see those changes, I can simply open up the portal, find Deb's document. Let's click to open it. And all of my changes are going to be in there. You can see the red font that we've just applied. Now, this synchronization only happens if we're saving our files into cloud storage, in this case, OneDrive. So that is kind of how OneDrive sits in the middle there and is so important when it comes to keeping all of your documents up to date, no matter where you've edited them from. So far in this section, we've very much been focusing on how we can access our files through OneDrive online. But I did mention a couple of lessons ago that we can also access our OneDrive files through File Explorer. Because if you think about it this way, if you're sitting at your desk, you don't really want to have to log into your Microsoft 365 online portal in order to access any of the files that you have stored in OneDrive. So to make it a bit easier, we can synchronize our OneDrive with our PC and access all of our files and folders from within File Explorer, which makes the whole process a lot simpler. So how do we actually get that to synchronize? Now, before we get onto that topic, let me show you very quickly what my File Explorer looks like. So I have mine open right now, and you'll notice at the top I have Deb Personal and Deb Train IT Now Limited. That's my company. Now I have two here because I have a personal Outlook account for my personal email, and that is simply a free account. Now it's worth noting that even with a free Outlook.com account, or if you're as old as me, a Hotmail.com account, you get a certain amount of free OneDrive storage included in that. And at the time of writing this course, that was 5 gig. But I also have another account, and this one is a business account. So this is an account that I pay for. I have a business standard subscription, and this is where I store all of my business related files. So you can have two separate OneDrive accounts on your PC. Now what you see in here in File Explorer will basically reflect what you see in your online portal. So if I click on Documents, you can see I have a few folders and I have a few files in here. So let's jump across to the online portal for this account and make sure that everything is the same. So I'm back in the portal now, and I've actually switched to my Train IT Now Limited account. And you can see here I'm in the Documents folder, and I have exactly the same folders and files that you can see in File Explorer. And if I was to create a new document just here, let's just do a quick Word document, and we'll just type test in here. We'll give it a quick name. I'm going to call it Deb Test. And hit enter. You can see that that's saving back to the cloud. So I can now see that document sitting just here, but it's also going to synchronize to File Explorer. So let's jump back across there and see if that's worked. And I can see, yes, there is the file. I can double click to open this file as I normally would, and I can carry on working within this file. And any changes that I make are automatically saved back up to the cloud. Now, with all of this activity, all of this saving back to the cloud, it's sometimes a good idea to be able to see the synchronization status and other information about your OneDrive. And what you'll notice is that if you go back to your desktop and take a look at your taskbar, notice over on the right-hand side, I have two little cloud icons. And that's because I have two OneDrive accounts. So for example, this one here, the blue one, is the one that represents my business OneDrive account. Now if I click on this, this is going to show me if all of my files are synced, if I've got any errors or issues that I need to resolve, and I can see the files that have been synced recently. I can also click on Open Folder if I want to go straight to OneDrive Online. I can view them online, or I can take a look at my recycle bin. Now, syncing in OneDrive is an automatic process. It's not something that you have to invoke. There is a button within the online portal that says sync, and we saw that a bit earlier. So if for some reason you're finding that your files haven't automatically synced, you can manually sync your files as well. Now, the final thing of note in here is the little cog icon in the top right-hand corner. This is where we're going to find all of our OneDrive settings. Now, something that's important to note here is if we click on Settings and the Account tab, this is where we can unlink our PC if we want to. So maybe you decide that you don't want to have your files synchronized to File Explorer, you just want to have them accessible through the online portal. You could click Unlink this PC in order to do that. Also, this is where you come if you have more than one OneDrive account. As I mentioned, I have two. I have a personal one and I also have this business one. So you can click on Add Account, and it's going to walk you through the process of adding that second account in, which will then add the second cloud icon in the status bar where you can access your settings for your personal OneDrive. Another thing to know is that you don't necessarily have to synchronize all of your folders to your PC. So if you don't have a great deal of space on your PC and you don't want to sync absolutely everything that you have saved in OneDrive, you could click on Choose Folders and then go through and specifically select which folders you're interested in having access to on your PC and keep everything else in cloud storage. Another important aspect of working with OneDrive is being able to access files on demand. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, you can see currently I have File Explorer open. And what you'll notice is that when you do have your files synchronizing in OneDrive, you will have a status column when you're looking at your files in File Explorer. And notice here that next to some of these files and folders, I just have a cloud icon, and next to a couple of the other files, I have a green tick. So what is the difference between these status icons? Well, if your file or folder has a cloud icon next to it, it means that that file only exists in the cloud. And what I mean by that is that the file is stored in the cloud only, it's not stored on your PC. If the file has a green tick next to it, it means it's accessible in both locations. So for example, debtest.docx has a green tick, which means that this file is actually stored on my PC's hard drive, and it's also stored in the cloud. Whereas my first spreadsheet.xlsx is not stored on my PC, so it's not taking up any space. It's only stored in the cloud. Now, the difference that you see when you're looking at these files in File Explorer is minimal. I can still see all of the files that I have saved, no matter where they're saved to. It just means that if I choose to open my first spreadsheet, for example, it's going to need to download it from the cloud in order to open it on my PC. And all this really means is it just takes a couple of extra seconds to open. So what is the meaning of all of this? Well, this becomes very important if you start to run out of space on your PC. Remember, hard drives are not unlimited. We need to always make sure that we're not at capacity when it comes to the files that we're storing on our PC. And if you can imagine, if you store all of your files in the cloud, and that might be thousands and thousands of files, and you have all of those files synchronized to your PC, that's going to take up a lot of storage space. Whereas if we just have the majority of our files stored in the cloud only, it means we're freeing up space on our PC. And we can simply just double click to download the files that we need as and when we need them. So these are all decisions that you're going to need to make. Remember, we can determine which files and folders that we're syncing by clicking on the cloud icon down in the status bar. If we go up to the Settings tab and into our OneDrive settings, this is where we can choose the folders that we want to sync. So currently, I'm pretty much making everything available on my PC and in the cloud. Now, as I said, this might not be the best way to work. It might be that you have specific folders that contain files that you need to have quick access to all the time, and those are the only ones that you want to synchronize. You can define that here in order to save yourself a little bit of hard drive space. Now, another thing we can do is if we decide, for example, that we want debtest.docx to only be available in the cloud and not on our hard drive, we can right-click on the file, and notice we have a free up space option. Now, as soon as I click this, it's going to remove it from the PC and it's just going to store it in the cloud. And you can see that that icon has now changed from a green tick to a little cloud icon. Similarly, if I decide that I want to make my first spreadsheet.xlsx available on my PC, I can right click and I can choose Always Keep on this device. So that's going to synchronize and then we get a green tick. So just be aware of that difference and how you can manage which files you have stored solely in the cloud and which ones you make available on the hard drive of your PC. One of the best things about working in Microsoft 365 is the seamless way that we can collaborate with others on files and documents. We can take any file that we have within Microsoft 365 and share it with colleagues and team members. And the coolest thing is that we can utilize co-authoring functionality. So what exactly is co-authoring? Well, let's open a file first of all, and for this example, I'm going to choose this one just here. It's a Word document called Training Information. And again, this just has some junk text in it for this particular tutorial. Now we have this open in Word, and I can go in and start making edits. But maybe I want to collaborate with my colleague Adele. What I can do is I can share this document with Adele, and then we can both open up this document and work in it at the same time. I can see where Adele is currently clicked in the document, and I can also see the changes that she's making in real time. So this is true co-authoring and negates the need to send files attached to emails backwards and forwards. Now, when it comes to sharing files with others when you're working in Microsoft 365, there are numerous different places that we can do this. Now, if you already have your document open, like I do just here, notice that within Word Online, and you will find this within Excel and PowerPoint as well, we have a share button in the top right-hand corner. So I can click this and I can share, or I can copy the link. Now we are going to use this option, but before we do, let's just go back to the home page and take a look at where else we can share documents. So once again, we have training information just here. If I hover my mouse over this, the three dots in the middle will open up the More Options menu, and you can see that I can share it from here as well. Now remember, this file is essentially stored in OneDrive and SharePoint, so I can share from either of those applications as well. So if we quickly open up OneDrive, there is the file, and once again I can click on the three dots and I can share it from here. So numerous different resources for sharing with others. Now we're going to go back to Word Online and we're going to click the share button in the top right hand corner. Now the first thing I want to do here is I want to determine what kind of access I want to give Adele. So I'm going to say people I choose because I only want to limit it to her. So let's click on apply and then I can just specify that I want to share with Adele. I could share with more people just by typing their names in. I could then type a message. I'm not going to, just to save a bit of time, and then I can send that off to Adele. Now what Adele is going to receive is basically an Outlook email with a link to this document. When she clicks on that link, it's going to jump her straight into this live original document that I currently have open. So let's give her a few minutes to open up the email and click on the link, and we should see Adele arrive very shortly. And check it out, there she is. I can see her initials within the document. So that is showing me where she's currently clicked. And I can also see when she types and updates this document in real time. So this is true collaboration. Reversely, wherever I'm clicked and wherever I'm making changes, Adele is going to be able to see my initials in the version that she's working in. So this is what we refer to as co-authoring. And you could have more than one other person working in this document. You might have an entire team of people, 5, 6, 7 people. So this is a really efficient way to work and really cuts down on the amount of documents that we're passing back and forth between team members via email attachments. Another thing you'll also notice is that you will be able to see the profile photo of anybody who's currently in this document with you. So if you take a look at the top next to comments, you can see Adele's little icon just there. If I hover over, it's telling me that she's currently clicked on page 1, and I can even jump to her location in the document. And the final point worth noting is that co-authoring is only available when you're working in the online version of your Office applications. Deleting files in OneDrive will move them to the recycle bin. But the good news is if you accidentally delete a file or you need to get a file back, you can restore the file from the recycle bin back to the original folder that it was deleted from. For example, I'm in OneDrive. I'm currently clicked on the My Files folder in the left-hand pane. Now, if I scroll down, I can see I've just got a few random books here, some Excel workbooks, book 1, book 2, and book 3. And maybe I want to delete all of these files. So there's a couple of different ways that I can do this. If I haven't actually selected the file, I can simply hover over it, click on the 3 dots, and I'm going to find a delete option in the menu. The alternative method would be to select the file by clicking in the circle to the left, and I can choose delete from the horizontal menu bar at the top. If you want to delete multiple, just make sure you select them first. So I'm going to delete these 3 workbooks. Let's click the delete button. It's going to ask me to confirm, so I'm going to say yes, I want to delete these. And those have been deleted and moved to the recycle bin. Now we can find our bin in that left-hand menu again, right at the bottom here underneath favorites. So if we click on recycle bin, we should be able to see everything that we've deleted recently. And you can see right at the top there are my 3 files. So the good news is that they don't get permanently deleted immediately. They'll move to here, and then you have a specific period of time where you can restore these files if you need to. Now, the retention period is different depending on what type of Microsoft account you have. So if you have a personal Microsoft account, you have a period of 30 days in which to restore these files before they're permanently removed from the system. If you have a work or school account, you have 93 days, which seems a little bit of a random time period. So it's a bit longer if you have one of those accounts. So let's pretend that I made a mistake and I actually do want to keep book 1. What we can do here is select the file and check out the horizontal menu bar. We only have 2 options, delete or restore. If I click on restore, it's going to move that back to the folder that I deleted it from. So if I go back to my files, I can see there is the file back in my files list. And that is all there is to it. So pretty simple to delete and restore files when you're working in OneDrive. It's time now for us to do exercise 3, where we're going to practice some of the skills that we've learnt in this section of the course. And this section was all about OneDrive. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to download the files practice1.docx and practice2.xlsx from the exercise files folder. And I'd like you to upload both of these files into OneDrive. And I don't really mind which folder you upload them into. I'd then like you to open practice1.docx in Word Online and make some edits. Once you've closed down that Word file, I'd like you to synchronize OneDrive to your computer. Now, I've marked this step as optional as I am aware that a lot of people will already have done this. So if you have, you can skip over this step. I'd then like you to make the files practice1.docx and practice2.xlsx available online only. That is it for this exercise. I hope you get on okay with that, and if you'd like to see my answer, then please keep watching. The first part of this exercise was to download practice1.docx and practice2.xlsx from the exercise files folder. So once you've done that, they should go into your downloads folder, and you can then upload them into OneDrive. Now, I said that I don't mind which folder you upload them to. So I'm going to upload mine to My Files, and I'm going to put them in the Training Files folder. So all we need to do is go to the Upload button. We can select Files. There are the two files, Practice 1 and Practice 2. Let's select both of them and click on Open. Next, I asked you to open practice1.docx in Word Online and make some edits. So I'm going to click on the three dots. I'm going to go to Open in Browser to open it in Word Online. So that's going to open. You can see this is just a test template that we've got here. And I asked you to make some changes. So I'm going to select this first paragraph. I'm going to make the text red. And let's select the second paragraph. Let's just make the text bold. Remember, we don't need to save when we're working in Word Online because everything saves automatically back to OneDrive. Let's close down the file. I then asked you to synchronize OneDrive to your computer if you haven't done it already. Remember, if you have done this previously, then you can skip over this step. If you haven't, all you need to do is go up to the menu bar and click on the Sync button to start that synchronization process. And once the synchronization is complete, you should find that you have your folder in the folder list in File Explorer that corresponds to the files that you have in OneDrive Online. If you notice, mine are exactly the same in both locations. I then asked you to make sure that practice1.docx and practice2.xlsx are available online only. Now notice both of these have a green check mark next to them, which means that they are downloaded to my PC. Now it might be that you don't have this green check next to your files. If you don't, you can right click and choose Always Keep on this device. Because what we're essentially doing when we make files available online only is freeing up space on our PC. So if you do have files that are stored directly on this device, you can right click and go to Free Up Space, and that will make them available online only. That was it for this exercise. I hope you got an okay with that, and I will see you in the next section. Microsoft 365 groups are a collaboration feature within the Microsoft 365 suite of productivity tools. They provide a way for users to work together and share resources such as emails, calendars, files, and more with a specific group of people. And if you want to know why they are so useful, I'm about to tell you. Microsoft 365 groups provide seamless collaboration. They allow users to collaborate on projects or tasks by providing a centralized space for communication and sharing. Group members can easily access shared resources and stay updated on group activities. And with groups, we can also have shared email conversations. Each Microsoft 365 group has its own unique email address, allowing members to send and receive messages within the group. This simplifies communication and ensures that all relevant discussions are centralized in one place. Groups can also have a shared calendar. This enables members to schedule and coordinate meetings, events, and deadlines. It provides visibility into the availability of group members, making it easier to plan and collaborate effectively. There's also a huge document collaboration thread to Microsoft 365 groups. groups have a shared file library through Microsoft SharePoint. Members can store, co-author, and collaborate on documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. This simplifies version control and ensures everyone has access to the most up-to-date files. And Microsoft 365 groups really enable a team-centric approach to working. They allow members to quickly create and manage groups based on projects, departments, or other shared interests. And this structure helps organize and streamline collaboration efforts within an organization. And if you are a Microsoft 365 administrator, you can manage access permissions for Microsoft 365 groups, ensuring that only authorized members can join and contribute to the group's resources. So it helps maintain a level of data security and privacy within the organization. And possibly my favorite element of Microsoft 365 groups are their integration with other Microsoft 365 applications and services, such as Microsoft Teams, Planner, OneNote, and Yammer. This integration enhances productivity and provides a comprehensive collaboration experience. So in this section, we're going to dive into Microsoft 365 groups, and I'm going to show you exactly how they work. Overall, Microsoft 365 groups offer a powerful and efficient way for teams and organizations to collaborate, communicate, and share resources, enabling improved teamwork and productivity. The first thing you're going to need to know is how to access and also how to create new Microsoft 365 groups. And the good news is you can do this from within Outlook. So I've opened up Outlook Online from the portal. I'm just in my mail account at the moment, and you can see I have all of my mail folders, and then right at the bottom I have a section called Groups. So let's just collapse up some of these folders to make these groups a bit easier to see. So you can see here that I have 4 groups already set up. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail about how these integrate with other applications a bit later on in this section. For now, we just want to focus on how we can create a new group. And by looking at this, it should be fairly obvious. We have 3 links at the bottom. We can create a new group. We can discover groups, so that's groups that have already been set up within our company. And we can also manage our groups. So we're going to create a brand new group. And we're going to stick with our Project Juliet, Project Delta, and Project Alpha theme. We're going to create a new group called Project Bravo. So let's click on New Group. The first thing we need to do is give our group a name. So let's type in Project Bravo. Now notice just below where we have email address, Microsoft 365 has assigned a unique email address to this group. So you can see here it says Project Bravo at, and then we have the tenant that we're attached to. Now I'm attached to a test tenant just here. Yours will probably be your company name. Now the cool thing about this automatically generated email address is that if you just want to send an email to all group members, you can simply use the email address below. And that works for people outside of the group as well as inside of the group. You can add an optional description just to save a bit of time. I'm not going to do that, but it is worth adding in a description so people know exactly what this group is about. And then we get to set our privacy settings. So you can see currently mine is set to private. So this is a private group. Now what that basically means is that it's not discoverable outside of anybody who's been invited to the group. So in a moment, we're going to go in and we're going to add people to this group. And those are the only people who are going to be able to find this group or search for this group. If you recall, over in this left-hand menu, we had a Discover Groups option just here. And that will basically allow you to click on it and discover any groups that are public within your organization and request to join those groups. With a private group, we can't do that. Now I'm going to change the privacy settings here. Let's click on Edit, and I'm going to change this to public. So it says anyone in your organization can see what's inside. So this is completely open to everybody within my organization. I can choose the language for group related notifications. Obviously, I'm going to keep that on English United Kingdom. And then we can choose to have this checkbox selected. So members will receive all group conversations and events into their inboxes. So what this basically means is that anytime something happens within the group, all of the group members will receive a notification. And I would say give this a go, leave it ticked first of all, but if you find you're getting too many notifications, you might want to come in and just untick this option. Let's click on Create to create our group. So our group has been created. Again, if you cast your eyes over to the left-hand side, you can see we now have Project Bravo at the top here, but it's giving us the chance to add members to this group. So I'm going to add a few people. Let's add Adele. I'm going to add Grady. I'm going to add about 7 people here. So I'm just going to go through and add a few people. And I think that's enough. So I've now got 7 members, as well as myself, included in this group. Let's click the Add button at the bottom. And there we go. It is as simple as that. So now over in the left-hand pane, I can click on Project Bravo, and this is my new group. If this is the first time that you're creating the group, you're going to get this little pop-up so you can have a little bit of an explore. I'm going to say not now. And this is where we can come to work with this group. And we're going to go into a lot of the features of this group throughout the balance of this section. The final thing I want to point out is you can see at the top here, it says public group. We have 8 members. If I click on where it says 8 members, we can see all of the members of this group. So that is how simple it is to create a Microsoft 365 group. In the next few lessons, we'll take a look at how we can send emails, share files, and do lots of other cool things. In the last lesson, we saw how to create a group called Project Bravo. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how simple it is to send emails to that particular group. So I'm currently clicked on the Project Bravo group in the left-hand menu. And the way that you need to think about this is it's just like having an email inbox. You can see in the main body here any emails that have been sent to the group. So if I click on this first one, because we only have one, this is the default email that you'll get when you set up a new group. So it just kind of gives you some guidance as to how to start a conversation, how to add to a team site, how to share files, and how to connect other applications. So I would recommend that if you are new to groups, that you go through each of these and just have a little read. Now, everybody who has access to this group, so the 8 members that I've added, are going to be able to see this group underneath groups in that left-hand menu. So everybody is going to be able to see exactly what I'm looking at just here. Now, if we want to have conversations within our group about Project Bravo, so everyone is going to be able to see any emails that have been sent to Project Bravo, meaning that everybody is up to date on the latest happenings within the group. Now I'm going to quickly switch back to my inbox. So let's expand folders out and I'm going to go to inbox. You can see here right at the top of the list, I also have a new notification that I've joined the Project Bravo group. So if I want to email Project Bravo, it's a simple case of creating a brand new email and typing Project Bravo into the to field. Now a word of warning here, if I type in Project Bravo, you can see it's not actually recognizing it in the drop-down list. And you might find this if this is a group that you've just created and then you immediately try to email the group as I'm doing here, it does take a little while for Outlook to recognize it in that drop-down list. So don't be disheartened, it is actually there. You can simply click on the to field, and if we go to the global address list and scroll down to where we have all of our groups, there it is just there, Project Bravo. So I'm going to click on the plus and click on Save. Now notice here, next to where we have Project Bravo, we have a little plus symbol. Now if I click on this, it's going to show me all of the individual members of the group. Now this is important because this really changes how this email is sent. If I click on the plus, it's going to show me all of the individual members, and then when I type in a subject and a message and click on send, it's not going to send it to the Project Bravo group, it's going to send this message to each of the individual team members. Now if you want to do that, that's fine, but if you want it to appear actually in the Project Bravo group, then don't click on that plus. So I'm just going to send this email to trash. I'm going to discard the draft. We're going to create a new email again, and we're going to send it to the Project Bravo group. So let's just add that back in, click on save. I'm going to add a quick subject, and I'm also going to add a message. So now when I click on send, that's going to send it through to the group and it will be visible by all group members. So it's a small difference, but a really important difference, because if you just send it to the individuals, it's not going to show up in the Project Bravo group. You can see now there is the new mail, and everybody who's a member of this group can see this mail. Now, the final point to mention is that people who are outside of your organization can also email the group directly. And that is because each group that we create has its own individual email address. So if we click on the Project Bravo icon just here, there is the email address. So what we can do here is we can copy the email address, close down this window and open up a brand new email. And then in the to field, we can simply Control V to paste that in, compose our mail and send it through. So really simple to email a group from outside of your organization. The very final thing to point out here is that also within this group, we have a send email button. So if I click on this, you can see that it automatically puts into the to field Project Bravo. So this is by far the quickest method to use if you want to send an email to the entire group. In the last couple of lessons, we've been very much focused on working with Microsoft 365 groups within the Outlook inbox. We've seen how to create a group, Project Bravo, and we've seen how we can send and receive messages. And you can see that since the last lesson, I've had a reply from Alex, and I can see that he really likes the new group. Now, aside from having this kind of shared email inbox for all of the group members, we can also have a shared group calendar. And these are beneficial because it means we can have a specific calendar set up for a specific group of people, in this case, all of the members of Project Bravo, and we can schedule according to the group members' free time. So in this lesson, we're going to see how we can set up a shared calendar based off of a Microsoft 365 group. And this is super simple. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to jump over to our calendar area of Outlook. So in that left-hand menu, I'm just going to click on Calendar to switch across. Now, underneath the mini calendar view, this is where we have access to our different calendars. So you can see that I have access to my calendar, and also I'm showing the UK holiday calendar as well. Now, if I also want to show a shared calendar for Project Bravo, all I need to do is click on Add Calendar just above, and then we have lots of different types of calendar that we can add. Now, Project Bravo is a group that we've just set up. It exists in the company directory. So we're going to choose Add from Directory from this left-hand menu. We can choose an account to search from because remember, you might have multiple accounts attached to your Outlook. Now, in this case, I only have one, that is this one just here. So now I can select a person, a group, or a resource from our organization's directory to view the associated calendar. So this is simply a case of typing in Project Bravo, there it is at the bottom. Let's select it, and then we can choose where to add this calendar to. So if I click the drop down here, I can add it to my calendars, other calendars, or people's calendars. So because this is a group, I want to separate it from my calendars, I'm going to put it in other calendars. Let's click on Add. And there we go. You can see at the bottom here, we now have a new group called Groups, and there we have the Project Bravo calendar selected. If I were to deselect my calendar and the holiday calendar, I'm now just viewing Project Bravo. I can start scheduling items in this calendar, and it just means that everybody else who has access to this calendar, which is currently all of Project Bravo, is going to see exactly the same thing when they open up their Outlook. They're going to see Groups at the bottom, Project Bravo, and they can see anything that's been scheduled. Another great feature of Microsoft 365 Groups is the ability to easily share files. Each group that you create comes with its own SharePoint file library. And we can upload files that exist on our PC to that library, or we can create new files from directly within SharePoint and share them with the group members. So to access our file library, if we click on the group, Project Bravo in this case, and jump up to the three dots, let's click them. Notice we have an option in here called Cite. And you'll notice that the icon is a SharePoint icon because that's effectively what we're connecting to. This is sort of giving you an idea as to how all of the applications link together in Microsoft 365. So if we click on Site, it's going to jump us across to the specific SharePoint site for this Microsoft 365 group. And you can see at the top there, we have the title, Project Bravo. Now, if we click on the Documents link in the left-hand menu, that's going to jump us across to the SharePoint file library for this particular group. So if I have a file that I want to upload, I can click Upload and I can upload a file or a folder, or I can create a brand new document from here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a Word document. It's going to open in Word Online, and I'm just going to type in some test text. So I'm going to do my little dummy text trick just here, just to get something in there. And we're going to rename this file. So at the top here where we have just document, which is the generic name, if we click, we can then rename this to something else. So we'll call this Project Bravo Team Document. And you can see underneath it's going to save it into the Project Bravo folder, Shared Documents. Click away and it's going to rename that file. Now everything synchronizes when we're working in Microsoft 365. So if I close down Word, I should find now that I can see that document sitting there. Again, it hasn't refreshed with the new title, but if we just quickly refresh the browser, we should find that that new title pulls through, which it does. So let's close down SharePoint and jump back to our Outlook group. Now, the other thing that you'll notice is next to Send Email, we actually have a Group Files area. If I click on Group Files, this is going to show all of the files that have been shared within this group. And you can see here, there is the document that I just created. So everybody who's a member of this group can now see this document, open it, and work on it in Word Online, and everybody can see those changes in real time. We can also see in the other half of the screen the document library that we were just in. So you don't necessarily have to click on the three dots and go to Site. You can just click on My Files and you can upload from here, or you can create new documents from here as well. So everything feeds through really nicely. And of course, the other way that you can share files with group members is simply to email them as an attachment to the group. So if I go back to My Inbox and create a new email, I'm going to send this email to Project Bravo, and you can see it is now pulling through, so I can select it from here. I'm going to add a subject, and then I'm going to attach a file. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can attach files. I could go up to the paperclip icon and I could choose one of the suggested files, normally one of your most recent files, or I can browse my computer, or I can upload from OneDrive. But the more interesting way is if I press / in the body of the message, again, that's going to show me my last files. And I can choose a file this way. So let's say I want to send the training spreadsheet. I can do that. It's going to create a link and then I can send that through. So now if I click on the group Project Bravo, you can see there is the email message. If I click on it, I have easy access to that spreadsheet and I can simply click on the link to open that up. Now, it's worth noting that if we go back to our groups, if I click on Group Files, I'm not going to be able to see that Excel spreadsheet listed here because I just shared a link to that spreadsheet. If I wanted to effectively upload this to the group SharePoint library, I would simply need to go back to the document and I can change where I'm saving it into. So I can move this to Project Bravo and I'm going to say Move Here. And that's effectively going to upload it to the SharePoint file library. You can see evidence of that in the URL. It now says mysharepoint.com. And then when I close this down, you should now see that in the documents library, there is the training spreadsheet. So what I'm trying to illustrate there is that if you do attach a link to a file and send it to the group, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to see it immediately under the group files. It needs to be saved into the shared file library in SharePoint in order for it to be accessible. But that's it. That's a couple of easy methods when it comes to sharing files in Microsoft 365 groups. Connectors allow us to connect other third-party apps and also Microsoft 365 apps to our group. For example, if you want notifications to come in based off of an RSS feed, so maybe you want news notifications to come into the group, then you could set up a connector to the specific RSS feed. If you maybe manage projects in something like Jira or Asana, you could set up a connector to either of those applications to receive notifications into the group. Or if you want to connect to another application within Microsoft 365, maybe you want to receive all notifications that are related to your Project Bravo Yammer community, you can set that up as well. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. Now, in order to get access to your connectors for a Microsoft 365 group, you just need to make sure that you're clicked on the group, click the three dots and jump into Settings. Now, towards the bottom here, you're going to have this little section called Connectors. And you can see here it says Manage or add your favorite services to this group. So if we click on Connectors, it's going to open up a brand new web page and it's going to show us all of the different connectors that we can add. Now, this is a very long list. We have a mixture of Microsoft 365 applications and also third-party applications. To make it a little bit easier to find what you're looking for, they are divided down into categories. So if you're looking for something specifically related to analytics, you could add that in, CRM, customer support, so on and so forth. Now, I'm just going to click on all because I know that the one that I want to add is fairly close to the top. So we're going to scroll down and you can see there we have Yammer. So if I add this as a connector, we're going to receive updates from the Yammer network that we select into our Microsoft 365 group inbox. So this is pretty cool. If I had a Project Bravo Yammer community, which we will set up a bit later on, and I want to make sure that the entire team is up to date with all of the goings on within that community, I could create a connection to that Yammer community to receive those notifications into the group. So we're going to click on Add, and it's going to ask us to log in. And you will be asked to log in no matter what application you select. Now I'm going to select Continue to authenticate with Yammer, and then we simply need to go through and set up the types of notifications that we want to receive. So this is the account that I want to use. It's my account. And then I can search for groups that I want to follow. Now, if I click in here, you can see it's showing me existing Yammer communities that I have set up. So let's say we want to receive notifications from the water cooler community. I'm going to get notifications for all messages. And if I'm interested in specific posts made by a specific user, I could type in their username just here. Now, I'm not in this case. I want to see everything. I could also refine the notifications that I'm getting by keyword. So maybe I only want to receive notifications when somebody posts a message in a Yammer community that has the keyword Bravo in it. I could specify that just here. I can then specify how frequently I want to receive notifications. So I could set this up to send notifications every 15 minutes. And if you have a lot of activity going on in your Yammer community, that might be a bit too much. I can set it to every hour, daily, weekly, so on and so forth. So I'm going to set this to daily and I'm going to click on Save. Now, as soon as I do that, you can see that now when we click on the configured section, it's telling me that I have Yammer configured, which is perfect. So let's close this down. So now, because I set this to daily, at the end of the day, we're going to receive an email into the Project Bravo Microsoft 365 group that shows us all of the activity that's occurred within that specific Yammer community, the water cooler, over the last day. In the final lesson of this section, we're just going to take a look at a couple of things that we haven't looked at yet, and we're also going to see how we can manage our groups. So we've pretty much seen what most of these buttons do at the top here. A final couple of things. Notice we have a little star icon next to the name Project Bravo. If we click this, that's going to add this group into our favorites folder in our inbox. So this is really just to give you quick and easy access to the group. We've seen how we can quickly jump to our group files, and the icon next to that is how we can quickly jump to our group calendar. When we click the three dots, we also have access to a shared notebook, and that's a shared OneNote notebook, and also a shared area in Microsoft Planner. Now, we haven't spoken about either of these applications so far in this course. We are going to talk about those a bit later on, so we'll come back and review at that stage. We've seen how we can jump to a SharePoint site to view our files in the file library, and then finally at the bottom we have settings. So if we click to open settings, this is how we can manage our group email. So at the top here it says choose which group messages to receive in your inbox. So this is relating to your personal inbox, not the group inbox. Now, because I am following Project Bravo, I've got mine set to receive all email and events. So I'm going to receive notifications in my personal inbox when things are coming in to Project Bravo. Now, if you don't like this option, you can choose to stop following the inbox. And you have 3 options just here. The harshest one is the bottom one, don't receive any group messages. So if you select this option, you're not going to see any Project Bravo group activity in your personal inbox. You could choose to select receive only replies to you. So if somebody specifically directs an email to you, you're going to get a notification about that. Alternatively, you can receive only replies to you and group events. So again, this is going to be just people who have replied specifically to you, but you're also going to get a notification if there are any group events going on. So you have these 2 different options, follow in inbox or stop following in inbox. So I'm going to leave this up to you to decide which one is most appropriate for you and how you like to manage your email. Underneath that, we've seen this is how we get to our connectors, and then underneath that, we can edit the group. So if I open this up, it's going to allow me to edit different elements of this Microsoft 365 group. For example, I could change the name to something else. I could change the email address. I could change the description. I can even change the access settings, the privacy level. So if I decide that I now want to make this group private, I could switch it from public to private very simply and click on Save. It's also worth noting that if you want to delete this group, this is also where you're going to find this option. So let's click on Save, and I'm actually going to go back into Settings again and back into Edit Group, because the other tab that we have up here is the Members tab. So this is where we can see who the owner is of the group. Currently that is me, and it's also where we can see a list of everybody who is a member of this group. And if we wanted to make somebody a co-owner, we can definitely do that from here as well. So if I want to make Adele a co-owner of this group, and that just really means that you have a little bit more access to do things in the group, such as owners are the only ones who can delete a group, we could click the drop down and I could bump up Adele's access to owner as well. So now we are co-owners of this group. I can also add additional members directly from here as well. And if I want to remove people from this group, I can click on the cross next to their name. So let's remove Isaiah, click on yes, and he's now gone. And finally, if we go back to the About tab, if you want to add an icon or an image to represent this group, you can do that from here as well, simply by clicking on the little camera icon. So I'm going to click here. Let's upload a photo. And I'm just going to choose this one here, welcome on board. There we go, that'll do. Let's click on OK, and you can see that that group now has a little bit more personality. Let's jump back into our settings, because we have 2 more options in here. So we can create rules on this particular group. And rules are things like, if an email comes in with a specific keyword, move it to this specific folder. So it's exactly the same as adding rules to your Outlook inbox. And the final option that we have within settings is to simply leave the group. Now, that's fine if you are a member of the group. If you are the owner of the group, you need to make sure that you have a co-owner before you leave the group. So if I was the sole owner and I tried to leave the group, it's not going to let me. Now remember, I made Adele a co-owner, so I can theoretically just simply click on leave and I can leave that group. But every group must have an owner, so just bear that in mind if you're trying to leave a group where you are the only owner. So that is pretty much it. That is all there is to Microsoft Groups. Hopefully, now that you're at the end of this section, you can see how useful they can be when it comes to connecting and collaborating with team members that belong to specific groups. It's time now for exercise 4. And in this exercise, we're going to practice some of the skills that we've learned in this section of the course about Microsoft 365 groups. So the first thing that I'd like you to do is simply to create a Microsoft 365 group and name it QA Testing Group. I'd like you to invite members to the group. And this step is optional depending on whether you have people to invite or not. Remember, you can always invite one of your own email addresses. I'd then like you to practice sending an email to the group using the unique email address. So this part of the exercise is really just testing if you know where to go to find that unique address. I'd then like you to share the file practice1.docx with the group. And I'd like you to make sure that you know how to access the SharePoint site and the team notebook for this Microsoft 365 group. So a few different steps there. If you'd like to see my answer, then please keep watching. So the first part of this exercise was simply to create a new Microsoft 365 group. So in the groups area, we're going to click on New Group. Our group name is QA Testing Group. I'm going to leave this on a private group, and we simply need to click on the Create button. I then asked you to invite some members. And again, you may or may not have people to invite. You could use one of your own email addresses. I'm just going to invite a few people from this list, like so, and click on Add. I then asked you to send an email to the group using the unique email address. So this was really just a test if you knew where to go to find that email address. So if we click on the group name, QA Testing Group, and then click on the group name at the top here, that's going to open up this little window, and there is the unique email address. So I'm going to click to copy this email address. We can then create a brand new email and simply Control V to paste it in. We can add a subject and a message and then send that through. The next thing I asked you to do was to share the file practice1.docx with the group members. So to do this, we can go to Group Files and we can upload a file. So let's select Files, and you should have these still in your Downloads folder from when you downloaded them from the Exercise Files folder in a previous lesson. So I'm going to select Practice 1, let's click on Open, and that's going to upload into the document library for this group. And the final step was just to ensure that you know how to jump across quickly to the SharePoint site associated with this group and also the team notebook. And we do both of those things by clicking on the three dots. We can jump across to the SharePoint site by clicking on Site. There it is, QA Testing Group. And we can access our team notebook by doing something similar, but this time we're selecting Notebook. So that is it. That is all I need you to do for this exercise. I hope you got an okay with that, and I will see you in the next section.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To get the course exercise files and follow along with this video, click over there. And click over there to watch more videos on YouTube from Simon Says It.